The Kansas City Royals shocked the baseball world by reaching the Fall Classic in 2014.
29 years of frustration have ended. The Royals are going to the World Series.
Go big or go.
But before their young talent could take center stage, they were here in Omaha, home of the AAA Storm Chasers. Much like last October, Royal Blue was the dominant color in Cincinnati last night. But before All-Stars Mike Moustakas, Sal Perez, and Lorenzo Cain called Kansas City home, they honed their skills here in Nebraska.
The center field, Cain in.
And he made the grab. Cain does it again.
Now the Cornhusker State plays host to the latest crop of prospects, looking to open eyes and fulfill Major League dreams. The future will be showcased in the 28th annual AAA All-Star Game next on MLB Network.
Go big or go.
And welcome to Warner Park in Omaha, Nebraska, home of the Omaha Storm Chasers, as some of tomorrow's stars compete in the 28th annual AAA All-Star Game right here on MLB Network. Hopefully the weather holds off long enough for us to get this one in. Welcome inside the broadcast booth, Paul Severino, Bill Ripken, editor-in-chief of Baseball America, John Manuel here as well. Third stop on this All-Star Tour. Sunday, the Futures game in Cincinnati. Last night, the Big League All-Star game, and now the AAA All-Star game here in Omaha, Nebraska. Not a lot of household names, but that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of impact players that we'll be seeing tonight. Just go back to last year when the game was played in Raleigh. Steven Souza played in that game, 13 games with the Washington Nationals. Of course, we all know about the catch that he made to end Jordan Zimmerman's no-hitter on the last day of the regular season. Andrew Susac, 34 games with a team that went on to win their third World Series title in 5 years. And Chris Taylor, 47 games for a Mariners team that fell just short of the postseason. So the bottom line is, we'll see some guys here tonight that we'll hear in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I'll follow up on what you said, too. Look, last night we saw pretty special players at the big league level, but that's not to say there's not a few out there. Those guys you just mentioned last year, not household names, but certainly made impacts on their big league clubs last year.
And Eric Johnson, starting pitcher tonight for the International League, 50 or so innings at the big league level. We'll see him here tonight.
Yeah, and what he's done better this year than in the past is locate the fastball. Fastball's got heavy sink, outstanding slider that's his out pitch. Gives him a chance to impact the big league rotation this year, whether the White Sox are in it or if they trade Jeff Samardzija and he gets up to fill that spot.
Well, there's a guy who can throw the baseball for sure, but I'm going to look at a guy that's going to hit the baseball and possibly hit the baseball far. Pete O'Brien right here, when you talk about raw power, it's probably safe to say he's got as much as anybody in this place. Light tower power, massive power, whatever you want to call it. The man might swing and miss a few times, but he also might run into one and hit it a long way.
He did the other night at the Home Run Derby. In fact, Peter O'Brien downstairs with the fourth member of our broadcast crew, Sam Ryan, standing by. Sam?
Thanks a lot, Paul. And Pete, this year has been a little different for you, you can say that. Traded at the trading deadline from the Yankees to the Diamondback system. You go from catcher to outfielder. Now you're here in the AAA All-Star Game. How do you sum up the year?
It's great. I mean, it was definitely tough, making the move from the Yankees to the Diamondbacks, but, I was welcomed with open arms, and, I love the organization. I'm just trying to go out there and have fun and just play baseball every day.
So Monday you finished second, oh so close in the Home Run Derby, 13 home runs in the first round. What was your approach?
Just one more. I mean, it was so close, but I just went out there and tried to have a lot of fun, just try to hit the ball hard, and I feel like it's really easy to try to hit the ball as far as you can, but you start popping stuff up. So, I try to stay disciplined up there and hit the ball hard to the middle of the field and get things happen.
And you went into that with some Home Run Derby experience. So talk about your credentials in the Home Run Derby in the past.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to kind of be in a couple the last couple of years and kind of, take some things that I've learned from it. But I was actually in one in 2013 in the Fall League, and I won that one. It was a little bit different. It was under a time clock, but, they're a lot of fun. I like going out there and putting on a good show for the fans, and, that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
I'll have fun tonight, Peter. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Paul, back to you.
Sam, thanks so much. We'll take a quick break and come right back to Warner Park in Omaha for the lineups and first pitch of the AAA All-Star Game next. Welcome back to Warner Park in Omaha, Nebraska. Take a look at the International League starting lineup. Jackie Bradley Jr. in left field, something he hasn't. Jesse Aguilar, and then Daryl Alvarez, who won the Home Run Derby Monday night here in Omaha, before Matt Davidson, who hit sixth, Trace Thompson, Elias Diaz, and Dixon Machado rounding out the International League starting lineup. So we are just about set to get going here. The 2015 AAA All-Star Game from Omaha, Nebraska. At the moment, it looks like a very nice evening for baseball as Jackie Bradley Jr. takes down and away for ball one, first pitch of the night. And it is a 1-0 count for Bradley, hitting .308 with 5 home runs so far this season.
And did you see the first pitch coming at 66 miles an hour? That wasn't a typo by our radar guy.
No.
I think he just went out there and just wanted to have a little fun with the first pitch.
A little ephus action, perhaps, from Carlos Pimentel, our starting pitcher tonight. 2-1 pitch to Bradley. Swing and a miss. 2 balls and 2 strikes. So yes, it is an all-star game, of course, but not a lot of playing time in left field this year for Jackie Bradley Jr., right, John?
No, he's made his name as a center fielder, and not for striking out, but his defensive ability has been his best attribute as a major leaguer to this point. That's why he's back in AAA, work on the bat.
He's been trying to steady things offensively, but goes down by way of the K to start the ball game tonight. 17 games and 16 starts for Pimentel with AAA Iowa, member of the Chicago Cubs organization. 9th best ERA in the PCL at .318, coming in tied for 5th most strikeouts at 76. James Beresford takes a ball, and it is 1 ball and no strikes.
And finally, a decent prospect that we're talking about with the Cubs other than a position player. That's nice to see for their future.
Very true.
Gets tiresome, all these great hitters. They keep developing. Schwarber, Bryant, list goes on. Rizzo, obviously.
Addison Russell mixed in there as well, playing a lot of second base. Beresford's playing second base tonight for the International League. And the count now 2 balls and a strike. Darnell Sweeney out there at second base tonight for the PCL. And Beresford in the air right field and hit well. Gives this one a ride. Back is Peter O'Brien up against the wall. It stays in the yard. It's extra bases for Beresford, and on his way to third with a 1-out triple here in the top of the first inning. I'm not sure if that one would have gotten out or not if O'Brien pulled it back, but it was certainly close to getting out of the yard.
Yeah, I don't think that was going to get out, and the flags are blowing in hard here in Omaha, which usually has a history of the wind blowing out. And I think what Peter got caught up with right there is a two-handed attempt instead of just going up clean with one, and I think he tied himself up. Also, the wall caught him a little bit.
Billy, a little that inexperience. He's a catcher, first baseman by trade before this year. Pretty new to right field, and I think it showed there.
So Matt Hague steps in, an RBI situation here, and a base hit up the middle, an early 1-0 lead for the International League on Hague's RBI single to center.
Well, truly international with the Australian Beresford. I think that's about as hard as James Beresford can hit it. If you look through his minor league track record, this is not a guy noted for home runs. This is a guy noted for being a run producer, and Matt Hague at the plate and gets a first pitch fastball, even though it's a way up the middle approach. That's how you become a 3-hole hitter in an all-star game. You have that kind of solid approach, use the whole field. Hague's a guy who doesn't strike out a lot.
And the willingness, he got rewarded for a base hit there, but it looked like he was willing to hit a ground ball to short, and you drive in a run as well. So there's something about run producers that are innate. They just understand how to do it, and using the big part of the field is a big key.
Second straight AAA All-Star game for Jesse Aguilar, who swings and misses there 0-2, and hits for Hague have been something easy to come by, leading the International League with 115. First inning has given the IL a 1-0 lead. On the ground, nice play there by Romack to second for 1, but they call it out, dropped on the transfer. So Darnell Sweeney covering second base, maybe tried to make the throw to first a little too early.
Maybe tried to do it a little bit too quick. This is a great play, number 1, to backhand this. Now the feed's a little bit low, but that's the time right there where you have to really concentrate as a second baseman and say, okay, I need this out. If it's not a double play feed, maybe abort the mission, just get the out.
That's one where also Aguilar being the runner, maybe Sweeney being in the PCL doesn't know him as well, doesn't know the runner. He had a little bit more time there than I think he thought he had.
Dariel Alvarez fouls one back, 0-1. There may have been something of a gift call there.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we saw the replay here, I was going
Right.
to overturn it from the booth,
Yes.
but I don't think I have that authority.
That's I do not believe so. We could check, though. You never know.
I think it's too late. It's already
true.
passed. It's already passed.
The moment
Paul.
has passed. All right. Alvarez in right field tonight. Lines that one foul, 0-2.
Here's a look at the transfer, or the possible transfer right here. When you see it low, this is one of the hardest places for a second baseman to go down below your knees right there. You want to keep that palm down to a degree, because if you turn the glove over, you run a risk of jamming your throwing hand finger. And I think he just clanked that one right there.
Swing and a miss on 81 miles an hour as Pimentel took something off it. He gives up the RBI single after the triple, and it's a 1-0 lead for the IL. Welcome back to Omaha. Let's take a look at the starting lineup tonight for the Pacific Coast League All-Stars. Darnell Sweeney leads things off at second base. Jason Pride's in left. Ketel Marte at shortstop. Peter O'Brien in right field. Cody Decker's the DH. Jamie Romack is at third base. Already made one nice play at the hot corner. Adam Duvall leading the PCL with 20 home runs. Hits seventh in this lineup. Austin Barnes and Arizmendi Alcantara to round things out. Now it's time to take a look at the Best Western Farm Report on PCL's leadoff hitter Darnell Sweeney, and speed, a big part of his game, John.
Yeah, Paul, he's aggressive. He knows how to use his speed on the base pass, almost too aggressive. Pretty good pop for that wiry frame. And as we saw in the top half, he plays many positions. He hasn't mastered any of them defensively. So the versatility plays for him to a certain extent.
And you talk about that frame of his, that's 8 home runs. So you're right, he does have some pop. Doesn't necessarily look like a guy that can stand in the batter's box and jump ship, but he certainly can.
He takes a called strike. 8 home runs, 37 RBIs out of the Dodgers system. Skies this one. On the infield, converging is a number of IL infielders, but it's Beresford to put that one away for out number 1. Let's take a closer look at tonight's starting pitcher for the International League, and it's Eric Johnson, leading the International League with 99 strikeouts, 16 games and 15 starts, pitching to a .273 ERA as he enters play here tonight. Obviously,
and you look at that and you
does.
see his 99 punch-outs.
Yeah.
You got his 89 innings. It certainly is one of those guys that I think John talked about earlier as being a guy that can impact a club in the future, and the close future right here, because the arm and the stuff plays.
Yeah, it does play, and he's got a durable body as well. To me, Billy, what I like best about him is he's got a pitch that he can get swings and misses with, and that slider.
Jason Pride swings over the top of that one to even up the count. 1 ball and 1 strike.
The other key is he pitches in a really small ballpark, and you see the hard slider is out pitch. Velocity of the fastball is good, but he sinks it as well. And just a little arm side there. I think he also has had some failure in the big leagues. He's learned from it. He hasn't gone back to AAA and sulked. He's come back and become a better pitcher.
You know, that's interesting that you said that ball got hit.
In the air to right center field. We'll see if this one gets down. Nicely run down by Alvarez, deep in the gap in right center field. 2 away. He was on his horse for a while and somehow got there for out number 2.
That's a nice running play right there. And look at this swing. Short, compact. Left-handers like the ball down. He actually ran that ball. The flags are blowing in hard here today in Omaha. You're going to have to hit one real far and real hard to get it out to right.
Yeah, he had to kind of come back with the glove a little bit there at the end. He did overrun that. And Alvarez, who's got, right field arm, showed you some right field range.
Ketel Marte takes outside for ball 1.
What I was talking about with Eric Johnson having big league time, maybe not sticking up there for certain reasons and coming down to the minor leagues. Players come down nowadays. Right. And if you come down with the right mindset, you can get back there in a hurry.
We got through this first inning in a hurry. 1, 2, 3. We go to the top of the second in Omaha. Back to Omaha, top of the second inning. Paul Severino, Bill Ripken, editor-in-chief of Baseball America, John Manuel aboard. Top 2, Matt Davidson leads things off. First pitch swinging and quickly 0-1. It'll be Matt Davidson, Trace Thompson, and Elias Diaz here in the top of the second. 14 home runs for Matt Davidson, who is back in the AAA All-Star game along with Zach Phillips and Jason Pride. A couple times around here in the AAA All-Star game and now playing for the opposite league.
You talked about Paul first pitch swinging. I think we're going to see that a lot during this game. The AAA All-Star game, yes, they want to do well, but that first good pitch they see, they're going to come unglued.
goes down looking for the first out. Probably not a bad idea with the weather as well. A little bit questionable about an hour or so from now. Here's another look at strike 3 to Davidson.
Not sure Pimentel hit his spot, but he got the call.
Let's send it down to Sam Ryan with a special guest. Sam?
Yeah, I'm with John Edwards, pitcher with Round Rock. And are you still getting used to being called pitcher? Because he was with the Cardinals organization as an outfielder for 5 years.
Yeah, I think I got the gist of it now. I feel pretty comfortable with it. Kind of fits my personality.
So how did you make the transition, and when did this occur?
In 2011, it took place. I just it's a God thing. Just came up in my heart, something that I just wanted to do, and then some doors opened, some opportunity came about, and I threw for the Rangers in the offseason that year, going into the season 2012, and ended up signing and going to spring training, and just progressed since there.
Progressed to the point where you're here at the AAA All-Star Game.
Correct.
What pitches are you still fine-tuning?
Primarily fastball command. I pitch off my slider a lot, so that's been probably the biggest deal, just working on commanding the strike zone with my fastball early in the count.
A great time for you here this evening, but I know you were dealt with some difficult news in the winter. You were diagnosed with cancer. Here you are today. You fought it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed on December 15th. Went to the doctor, noticed some things weren't right, and went to the doctor and he diagnosed me with testicular cancer. And, really it was kind of peaceful. I know it sounds weird, but we just trusted God with it and believed that I was going to be healthy, and just it was going to be a testimony to his faithfulness, and we just walked it out, and we're here today.
And you're cancer-free, and you're going to be a dad this fall. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Back to you guys.
Sam, thanks. Terrific story on John Edwards. Hopefully we see him a little bit later in this ball game. He's had a terrific season so far. 11 for 11 in save opportunities as Elias Diaz taps that one foul.
Has a chance to close tonight, Paul, if PCL has a late lead. So like he's in line. Brian Poldberg has us lined up for a late inning stint.
And I don't blame him. 11 for 11. Go ahead with it.
Diaz hitting .265 with 3 home runs. Takes outside 2 balls and 1 strike. A catcher in the Pirates system, and when Peter Gammon says something, it's always easy to repeat because he's probably right on. He mentioned after the Futures game the other day that Diaz might be one of those guys that becomes a trade chip if the Pirates decide that they need to pick something up at the trade deadline.
How about in our coaches meeting the other day, the IL coaches, Kevin Bowles with the Red Sox was coaching this guy in Venezuela in winter ball 2 years ago, and was so impressed with his growth offensively. But the catch and throw tools have always been there.
A 1-2-3 inning for Pimentel. A couple of strikeouts. 1-0 as we go to the bottom of the second. The 2015 AAA All-Star Game is brought to you by the Stormfront Team Store. Get your official AAA All-Star Game apparel and Omaha Storm Chasers gear at omahastormchasers.com/shop. Back here at Werner Park. Bunch of fans on tap here, and a lovely facility, just in basically in its infancy, 5 years. And they have done a wonderful job with this ballpark. There's a lot going on. You can't really see it on that wide shot, but there is a petting zoo that takes place here on the weekends. They have a basketball court. They have a carousel, bounce houses. This is certainly a fan-friendly environment, except when Peter O'Brien's up in the home run derby, because from what we understand, he went high and deep off of the wall, roof, in fact, down the left field line. Opened in 2011. 310 down the left field line, 402 to straightaway center field, and 315 down the right field line. Seats a little over 9,000 people. Of course, the berms out in the outfield. That'll seat a good chunk of fans as well, as Peter O'Brien gets set to see the 2-1 pitch from Eric Johnson. Swing and a miss, 2 balls and 2 strikes. A closer look here at Peter O'Brien. We showcased him in the open. Top of the scale raw power for sure, John.
Yeah, to me, I actually ran this comp by him pregame. I think he's a lot like Mark Trumbo. There's going to be swing and miss. He's going to be streaky. But when he connects, the ball stays hit. You know, that's his tool. That's his ticket to the major leagues. We saw in the first inning, it's probably not going to be outfield defense, and that's not Trumbo's deal either. But this guy could be a first, third, right, left field. and maybe an emergency catcher. And here he actually draws a walk. I think that strikeouts are going to come, but the power's going to come with it. He could be a 230 hitter with 25, 30 home runs.
I'd like to morph him a little bit with Trumbo and Chris Bryant. I like the way he stood at home plate right there. It looked like his approach was pretty sound.
He's hitterish.
And I think that you can cut down on the swing and misses a little bit, but the guy's got raw power. And like I said earlier, if he swings and misses a few times in a game and then hits a 3-run bomb, somebody's going to say, who cares about him swinging and missing?
So Cody Decker will step in with O'Brien off at first. That one misses low. Ball and no strikes to Cody Decker.
This might be my favorite guy in the whole game here, Paul, just from a personality standpoint. First All-Star game he's made in the minor leagues. He's pretty jacked about it as well.
Well, you like anybody who's in the Screen Actors Guild, am I right?
That makes it a smaller circle for me, yes. Draws things into where I'm more comfortable.
That's right.
Cody's theatrical, which we'll get to, I believe, later. He's got right-handed pop. He's friends with Pat Murphy. That helps him for me. Played for Pat at El Paso before Murph went up to the big league Padres.
Now, Paul, did you throw out the SAG because you know that I get the movies prior to their release and get to vote on those? Did you know that?
Well,
is that why you threw it out there?
I did know that, but that's not why I brought that up.
Right.
When is our next movie night at the Ripken household, by the way? It's usually Fridays.
It's usually about 6 days from never.
Right, okay, great.
All right.
Here's the other thing about Decker is that he can hit. This guy's hit throughout the minor leagues. There's some swing and miss there, too. He's more of a 260, 270 hitter, but he always hits for power. Steps in the bucket a little bit there. That high finish of a power hitter. Nice line drive swing for the former UCLA Bruin.
15 home runs, 6 most in the PCL. And leading El Paso with 55 RBIs. As Jamie Romack takes a ball. So 2 on, nobody out here. Bottom of the second inning. O'Brien on at second now after a walk, and Decker on at first after the base hit. So after a 1-2-3 first inning, Eric Johnson has himself in a little bit of trouble here with 2 on and nobody out.
He's left a few balls up already. It's a lot of hard contact so far off Johnson.
Might be a little guilty right here of overthrowing. I know it's just 1 inning and you're looking at the second inning of an all-star game. But sometimes it's not always add, throw harder. Sometimes it's spot your pitches a little bit better. Maybe take a little bit off, get a ground ball right here, get yourself 2 quick outs.
This is upstairs, 3 balls and no strikes, and this is a situation where Romack has excelled this year, leading the Pacific Coast League with 69 RBIs, second in home runs with those 18, second with 49 extra base hits, and already been named the PCL Player of the Week twice this season. We'll see if he gets the green light. 3-0. He does, and fouls it straight back. 3-1.
Johnson came inside again in on his hands, even 3-0. Romack is a Canadian, one of the rare Canadian right-hand hitters. You got Jason Bay, you got Brett Lawrie. Pretty much every other Canadian you could think of outside of Russ Martin. The rest of them pretty much all left-hand hitters.
Now, do they play hockey left-handed? Because a lot of right-hand hitters play hockey left-handed.
That's the theory. That is the theory. But some of the best ones have been right-hand hitters. This guy's got right-handed pop as well. This is a pretty tough gauntlet of right-hand hitters that Johnson has to run here. Romack originally drafted by the Braves. You see that there's a lot of grinding quality to his game, out there every day. But the power has really come on for him in the last couple of years.
So from 3-0 to a strikeout. Nice work there by Eric Johnson. There's 1 out, and it won't get much easier, at least in the power department, as Adam Duvall steps in. But here's a look at strike 3.
Now, what I liked about this from 3-0, where it looked like he was overthrowing, and it looked like he had a conscious effort of slowing himself down a little bit. Made a good pitch 3-0, came back 3-1 with a good fastball, and 3-2. So let's see if he can stay down in the zone for these next 2 outs, if he can do it, because when you're throwing high fastballs and overthrowing, that's problematic. Let's stay down in the zone, stay within yourself.
Adam Duvall, first pitch swinging, fouls it back. 0-1.
He's finding the zone a lot more consistently these last 4 fastballs. Does seem like he's self-corrected, made the adjustment himself, which is saving your pitching coach a trip, and that's what they're looking for at the big league level. Make those adjustments yourself.
The 20 home runs for Duvall, best in the Pacific Coast League, and I guess that goes to show you, and I understand it's an all-star game, so the lineup, of course, will be stacked, but he's hitting 7th as they throw behind the runner at first, but Decker is back.
You can see Diaz confident in his throwing arm as we get a look at Adam Duvall. Now, Duvall really the big reason he's still at this level has been the defense. Strong hands and forearms, strength is off in that lower part of his arm. It gives him that pull power. A little bit too much swing and miss, and doesn't really get himself into enough hitters counts. The stiffness in the infield, he's moved off of third base to become primarily a first baseman.
And this one in the air down the left field line. And we'll see if it stays fair. It does not. A ball and 2 strikes.
Love seeing the pull power on command, on cue.
And the good news about that for Johnson is the fact that he hung a breaking ball right there, but there was such a discrepancy between the fastball velocity and the off speed of that hook that sometimes you get away with one, gets out in front, he pulls it. Now if you make a pitch right here, you're 1 pitch away from getting out of this inning after first and second with no outs.
Be a 1-2 to Duvall. And John, you mentioned he moved off of third base, and that is a spot for the big club as Duvall goes down swinging for out number 2. A spot for the big club that has been filled nicely for Matt Duffy.
Right, but
by Matt Duffy.
In the offseason, they went out and got Casey McGee. So it was a guy where they went the veteran route instead of Duvall, because he gets beat here by that fastball away by Johnson. And Matt Duffy has just filled it spectacularly and really kind of come out a little bit out of nowhere. Tremendous, pretty much homegrown infield for the Giants with Belt, Panic, Crawford, Duffy, and of course Posey behind the plate, all drafted by John Barr in that scouting department.
And that last punch out, Adam Duvall, he pulls a breaking ball, so he's got to tell himself, I've got to protect against a slower pitch. And then a 94 out of third just blew him away.
There's a good hard slider too on that first pitch. After a very fastball heavy approach this inning, does a nice job of Johnson locating the slider for a first pitch strike.
8 home runs and 36 RBIs in the first half for Austin Barnes, catcher in the Dodgers system. Takes a ball, 1-1.
But you can see the fastball command for Johnson still has to come a little bit. That's why he's not quite a finished product yet. He's thrown strikes this inning. I wouldn't say he's exactly putting in a cup, would you, Billy? I mean, it seems like a little scatter shot.
Well, and you can be wild in the strike zone, and that can be problematic as hitters are ready to hit. I think that strike one, like a fastball at 92, 93, down and away from right-hand hitters, to get ahead of the hitter, puts you in the driver's seat. It doesn't look like he has that quite yet. Now, this is one game that we're watching him in an all-star game, but when that comes, I think this guy's stuff will play.
2-1 to Barnes. Misses by quite a bit. 3 balls and a strike.
Barnes is a guy, unlike some of these sluggers who we've just seen in the PCL lineup. This is a guy who will draw walks. Usually walks more than he strikes out. Very good contact approach out of Arizona State. Traded this offseason from the Marlins. The hitting ability and the strike zone judgment are 2 of his best attributes.
See, that's the pitch right there. If you can do that 3-1 and paint 92 down and away from right-hand hitter, let's go ahead and put that in your arsenal pitch 1 and get ahead of these guys 0-1. This is a quality 3-1 pitch. He's looking for something middle in to go ahead and drive.
Yep.
Down and away, he takes it. If you can do it again, you might be out of this inning.
Runners will be on the move on 3-2 with 2 away. Johnson deals the payoff pitch to Barnes toward left field. A step back and a step in for Bradley. Makes the catch, puts it away for out number 3. So he moved to the top of the third at Omaha, Nebraska. A 1-0 lead for the International League. See MLB Network's Pedro Martinez and John Smoltz alongside Craig Biggio and Randy Johnson take their place among legends. The 2015 Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Live coverage begins July 26th at noon Eastern on MLB Network. It's always a fun weekend in Cooperstown. It's been a good night so far. A 1-0 lead here in Omaha. The International League has the lead. And with that, we welcome you back inside the broadcast booth. Paul Severino, Bill Ripken, and one guy who will be in Cooperstown in a few weeks, who's there all the time, at least in spirit, right? George Brett, thanks so much for taking the time. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great. What is that weekend like?
A lot of fun.
Yeah?
A lot of fun. You bring your golf clubs and you play a lot of golf, and you see guys once a year that you see once a year. And that's what it is. It's kind of a reunion, and I'm very, very excited to be a part of that.
And if it's just like everything else, so you see these guys once a year,
That's
you
what you
pick
do.
up right where you left off.
It's like you never left.
Now, your class of guys, the Hall of Famers that are all together, that's a little bit different than when we hang out.
Yeah,
right?
no question
But we
about
can
it.
pick up right
Yeah.
where we left off.
That's right.
I'm a little disappointed this year. Mike Schmidt's not coming. And I never really liked Mike Schmidt. And then once I got inducted, I met him. I really liked the guy. And now we've gone on family vacations together. And,
is that right?
And we hang out every day together, play a lot of golf together, and he's not going to come this year. So I'm really disappointed in you, Mike.
Andre Rienzo takes over for Carlos Pimentel here in the top of the third. He'll face 9-1-2 for the International League as Dixon Machado takes in there for a strike. 2 balls and a strike with New Orleans. AAA affiliate of the Marlins, 13 starts and a 2.88 ERA.
Now, George, you certainly played your fair share of all-star games, whether it was in the minor leagues and a lot of them at the big league level. But the talent that's out there nowadays, I mean, even you in the Hall of Fame have to look at some of these guys and go, damn,
wow.
Really?
I say wow.
Right.
Wow. Wow. I mean, even when you go to spring training, I go to spring training every year with the Royals, and I see these guys that are 20, 21 years old, and I'm going, man, I wasn't that good at 21.
Yeah.
And these guys are in A-League and Double-A, and I already had 2 years in the big leagues, but I'm looking at them and their potential, their strength, their speed, everything about them, their swing, they're refined, they're good ball players, and I'm just in awe of some of these guys.
Now, when you see Jackie Bradley Jr. up here at home plate,
Played for the Red Sox. I remember that guy.
And when you're sitting there, the difference, there are some guys, and Jackie, I think, has to establish himself as saying, okay, I can get this done, and not only get this done here, but go back up to the big leagues and make my impact where I'm going to stay.
Well, I think the biggest problem with these guys is they don't know what kind of player they are. And you just got to know what you can do and do that to the best of your ability. I see so many guys that come to the major leagues in Kansas City, and I've seen it for years and years and years since I retired in 1993, is these guys aren't home run hitters, and they come up and they hit maybe 6 home runs in the minor leagues in their Double-A or Triple-A season. They get to the big leagues, they think they're a home run hitter. I mean, you just got to realize what kind of player you are and be the best player you can be. And when you do that, you'll be productive. And don't try to do things you're not capable of doing. Don't try to be an all-star your first year in the big leagues, because that's not going to happen anyways.
James Beresford takes a strike. He tripled and came around to score the game's only run. That was back in the first inning. That one just misses outside, a ball and a strike. Talked about the talent that's usually on display at the All-Star game. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an All-Star game with more talent. Maybe they had their greatest days behind them, and I go back to that 1999 All-Star game, as in there safely with the stolen base is Dixon Machado. So he's in scoring position with 1 out. That 1999 All-Star game, the All-Century team, you were a part of that.
Right.
What an amazing moment that was just watching it on TV.
Goosebump City.
Wow.
Goosebump City, and I watched the game last night back home in Kansas City, mainly because Kansas City was well represented. Normally, you know, we would have a guy that might pinch hit in the 7th inning,
right,
or a guy that might come in and face one batter. But last year, with the success we had, and then this year with baseball mania going on in Kansas City, we had 3 starters. Should have had 4, but Alex Gordon got hurt. I mean, I stayed home and watched the entire game, and was never so proud of guys like Wade Davis and Alcides Escobar and Lorenzo Cain, and would have loved to seen Alex Gordon starting in left field. But I mean, it's pretty incredible what the success of the Royals, not only last year, but I think the year before, when they had a chance late in the season to get a wild card berth the last month of the season, and they played the best baseball they played all year. I said, Dayton, I think we're getting close. These guys aren't backing down. And all of a sudden, last year they're running the playoffs, and then starting off the season 7-0 and never looking back yet. But not a lot of people believe in the team. I mean, we were big underdogs going into the season, and we got a 4.5 lead game at the All-Star break, and it's been a lot of fun to be a part of that organization.
And you mentioned baseball mania and Royal mania going on. I was going to have to tell you, though, George, if you had 8 starters in the All-Star game, I was going to lead the investigation, because something was not quite right.
I don't understand why they let people vote 35 times. Come on,
I
how
agree.
about 1 vote?
Right.
You know?
You see these guys that have passed through Omaha and have played at the big league level with the Kansas City Royals, something that you did coming through Omaha.
Played here in '73. All but 2 weeks of the season. I got called up in 1973 when the then parent third baseman Paul Shaw sprained his ankle. I got called up for 2 weeks, and then the next year, 1974, was one of the last players cut in spring training. 2 weeks into the season, they traded Paul to the California Angels, and I got a chance to go up to Kansas City And believe me, back then, 1974, $14,000 minimum salary.
Yeah.
It was a lot of money.
$800,000 or $800 a month in Omaha.
Right.
$14,000 in Kansas City. Man, I didn't want to go back.
Now, who was the manager in '74?
Jack McKeon.
Okay, so Jack called you in the office. He cut
And
George
said,
Brett. Come
well,
on, man.
No, you know what they were doing in spring training? They were catching me in spring training. I was going to be a utility player.
Wow.
I was going to be the third catcher, utility infielder, and outfielder. They started catching me in spring training, which didn't make my good friend John Waffen very happy because he was vying for the same position, third catcher. And then when I didn't play, I was always out in the bullpen because back then you didn't have bullpen catchers, or bullpen coaches. So if I didn't start at third base, I would be out in the bullpen catching with Buck Martinez or Bob Stinson or Fran Healy or whoever it was.
The 2-2 count to Matt Hague, who had the RBI single back in the first. Again,
Who's this guy with? What organization? Is this the Orioles?
Who are we talking about?
Hague.
Hague?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I had it in front of me.
Well, why don't you find it, Paul?
Put me on the spot, George. Come on, man. We go way back to like 3.5 minutes ago.
Yeah, but I was reading some bios. The guy's hitting 347. The first pitch he sees, he hits a rocket
up the middle for a base hit.
I'm going, who is this guy?
Pittsburgh.
Clint Hurdle's a happy guy right now.
He could be.
Yeah.
And there's something about, I know in today's game when we get a little bit stat happy and try to decipher new things, but there is something about a guy who can drive in runs. Yes, George?
Yeah. 54 RBIs. Guy's got a good swing.
You know who else is going to
Reminds me of a young Billy Ripken.
Look at George. You see, now you've just gone too far, George.
You know who else will be happy? John Gibbons, the manager of the Blue Jays, because Buffalo's the AAA affiliate of the Blue Jays. So I don't know how excited Clint Hurdle will be since I botched it. I'll wear it.
Well, you're wearing it.
That's all me.
And I love
is
the
this
fact
guy
that you're
with the
passing
Blue
up.
Jays or with the Pirates?
Blue Jays.
Blue Jays, yeah.
Drafted by the Pirates. Hence the confusion.
He's terribly struck.
Since I was so horrible setting you up and having all that info, can you stay another half inning?
Yeah,
awesome.
that's fine.
Back with George Brett after the break. The best seats at every ballpark for every game. Visit MLB.com/tickets today. Don't need a ticket to sit out on that berm. Beautiful.
I think you still need a ticket, though.
Well, you might need a ticket, but
Yeah, I'm just saying.
it's not exactly a seat.
No,
Paul Severino, Bill
it's a
Ripken
berm ticket.
bickering here
I
as
think Ripken Baseball is the only people that give berm tickets for free.
We do that.
you could probably get a ticket for free in any ballpark you want. First among Royals, games, hits, homers, ribbies, runs. George Brett kind enough to join us up here in the booth for a few minutes.
Is anybody going to knock you off one of these lists?
I don't think anybody's going to play that long. They
long.
don't have
You're
to
right.
play that long.
No,
now.
they don't.
They don't have to play that long. I had to play that long.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the desire to do the 162 thing every year is there anymore. Right? And I think it's just the way the game's built in. Look, you're going to get a day off here. You're going to get a day off here. We're going to keep you ready. So I think the years, yes, but also the 162 just doesn't roll around that often.
I never got to play 162. I was always hurt. I always hurt something.
Yeah, but when you were playing, you had 360, so you made up for the fact.
There's Manny Alcantara, 9-1-2 for the PCL, but followed by Darnell Sweeney and Jason Pridey here in the bottom of the third. The PCL trails by a run. That one is rip foul down the right field line. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Closer look at the Hall of Fame career of George Brett.
How'd they get a picture of you clean shaven? That's what I want to know.
I shaved a lot. I want to see a picture of me taking you out of second base.
I don't think you
Can
ever
we
did.
search the archive?
You screamed a lot, but I'm not so sure you ever got there. Paulie, I'm telling you, it was the first trip into Kansas City, and George comes into second on one that he can't even get close to him, and he's screaming, ah! And I turn and throw it towards first base, which is in the direction of his noggin, and he ducks it and kind of runs out of the way and is laughing. And I ran off the field. It ended the inning, and I yell at my brother. I go, Junior. And he goes, that's just crazy, George, dude. Don't worry about that. But that was my first week in the big leagues. I got that from old George here.
Alcantara grounds out to short, so Darnell Sweeney will come to the plate as a new pitcher on the mound for the International League. Eric Johnson out and Michael Bowden in with Baltimore this year. Norfolk, the AAA affiliate for Baltimore, that is. 24 games, 9 starts, a 1.91 ERA. as Sweeney steps in 0 for 1 on the evening.
Now imagine looking at those AAA numbers. Buck Showalter will figure a way to get him through the rotation and cycle him through. The way Buck Showalter and the Orioles seem to have a, I don't know, 15, 17 man rotation from time to time.
He is a master at that. This one hit well the other way to left field. Going back is Bradley, spun around but makes the catch. And there are 2 away.
There's the wind we were talking about.
Right.
Was that ball hit that hard, you think?
I don't think so.
It didn't look like
it's
it.
coming in hard from right, but it usually aids that ball to left. And this is a nice play by Jackie Bradley, because being a center fielder, you kind of have a better read. I think the corners sometimes can be a little bit more tricky with the slicing, especially when you have wind like we have today.
Nice play by Bradley to stick with it. So 2 out for Jason Pridey. I promise I won't ask. I'm just asking.
Okay.
How often do you get asked about the Pine Tar incident?
Well,
once a day, and this was
no,
it.
This was it?
No. I spoke at the luncheon today, and it came up there.
All right, good.
So this is the second time.
So I don't
today.
feel so bad.
No, it's there's a lot of other things that you could be reminded of. You know, you could be remembered for. One of them was in 1980. Thank you. When I had the hemorrhoids in the 1980 World Series.
And then you slid
I was the hemorrhoid guy up until July 24th, 1983. And then every on-deck circle I went to, all of a sudden I heard Pine Tar jokes. I didn't hear any more hemorrhoid jokes. So it's the greatest thing that ever happened.
That is actually better, isn't it?
It is a lot better.
How often did you get that enraged?
Well, there were some 0 for 20s or 0 for 15s that I was like that, but not in public in the runway,
right?
You know, but it wasn't very often.
So you didn't get along with Mike Schmidt, but now you play a lot of golf.
I love the guy.
How about Tim McClellan? You play golf with Tim McClellan a lot, or no?
I never have. Tim lives down the road in Des Moines, but Tim and I have stayed in contact over the years. He just retired as an umpire, and we had a lot of fun with that afterwards. And in fact, I got telegrams from all the umpires. Back then, we had to get telegrams.
Right.
1983.
Yeah.
No one had cell phones or text or Twitters or Instagrams or anything like that. I got a real telegram from Joe Brinkman, the umpire, who was the guy getting me in the chokehold. Got a telegram 4 days after the thing when Lee McPhail changed the ruling and said, no, home run stands, you guys got to come back and finish the game.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he sent me a telegram, and we've been, you know, I always got along good with the umpires. Always wanted them on my side.
Of course. Pridey was on the move with that one as it was fouled back by Ketel Marte, 0 for 1 tonight. So, well, you mentioned the hemorrhoid guy thing. You mentioned the Pine Tar. Is the Mendoza line also yours?
Well, I didn't invent it. I was the first one to tell Chris Berman about it, and so he gives me credit.
Okay.
But it wasn't me.
Okay.
Yeah, because you were certainly never around the Mendoza line.
No. Well,
the
my
Brett
first year
line was 360.
My first year in the big leagues, I hit 125. Only 40 at-bats.
40 at-bats.
Yeah. I hit 125, so that was a little below the Mendoza line. But Chris Berman always gives me credit for that.
That one looks like it got a good piece of Diaz behind the plate on the foul tip.
Ouch.
Maybe that
right
toe?
off the big toe.
Yeah.
Catchers have a lot of gear on. Some places can't be covered.
And that's usually where they take the foul tip. Right, more times than not. So Diaz hangs in there. It'll be an 0-2 pitch here to Marte with a runner on first and 2 outs here in the bottom of the third. International League a 1-0 lead. That one in the dirt. Pridey stays put. So let me ask you this too, George, because you spent obviously time in the front office with the Royals, then you go down to the dugout, you work with the team a little bit.
Right.
How was that transition for you?
Well, after 20 years of being retired, it was tough.
Yeah.
It was really tough. You know, I was away from the game for 20 years. I'd sit up in the press box with our general manager and watch the game, and then all of a sudden you're back and you're doing the travel, and you're getting to the ballpark early, and all these guys have indoor cages now, you know, and they all want to go and start hitting at 1. And a lot of them don't like to pick up the balls afterwards.
Oh,
so
really?
all I did was pick up balls and soft toss.
At 1
and
o'clock.
when I gave advice, a lot of them didn't take it. They took it as criticism. So after a while, I said, enough of this. I'm done.
All right, you are done. George
Yeah.
Brett,
Well,
thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
Billy,
George.
good seeing you.
Back to Omaha in a moment. On MLB Network's Friday Night Showcase, Adrian Gonzalez, Bryce Harper, all-star sluggers lead their teams in a clash of our nation's capital. Joey Costas, Cotton Verducci for Dodgers Nationals. MLB Network's Friday Night Showcase live at 7 Eastern, presented by Chevrolet. Back here, Omaha, Nebraska, Paul Severino, Bill Ripken, and the editor-in-chief of Baseball America, John Manuel, back, taking over once again for the Hall of Famer George Brett, who was kind enough to join us for a couple of half innings. New pitcher, Dean Kiefer. 32 games, 1 start, but pitching to a 2.09 ERA, part of the Cardinals system, and wouldn't you know it, another young gun arm coming out of a bullpen for a Cardinals organization that has been heavy on young pitching as of late, John.
And not a lot of spots left in that big league pitching staff for a guy like Kiefer, but a lefty specialist role is always one that he could carve out. Of course, lately he's been starting, which was the surprising thing to find that his last outing was 3 2/3 innings for Memphis as a starter.
Jesus Aguilar fouls that one back quickly. 0-2. It's 4, 5, and 6 for the International League here in the top of the 4th inning. Aguilar followed by Dariel Alvarez and Matt Davidson. Aguilar with a hot shot to third back in the 1st inning. A nice play by Romack. Maybe got the benefit of a call at second base. Runner was called out on the transfer. And looked as though Sweeney had full control of it, but whatever the case is, a 2-time International League All-Star, last couple of seasons, in fact, for Jesus Aguilar.
His power's to right center field, Paul. He likes the ball out away from him. Likes to take that ball and just kind of stays inside the ball pretty well for a big man, and his natural power stroke's really to right center field to the pole.
That one misses inside. Count even up, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
He's got a little bit of unorthodox in him as a left-hand pitcher. He kind of slings it, hides it pretty well. Got a little nice fastball, a little sink on it. Even that ball stayed up at 89, but it had enough run on it to hit the top of the baseball, ground ball out.
And there's one away here in the top of the 4th. Now, throughout the game, you probably hear us talk about the scale, the 20 to 80 scale, and how different skills may be graded by scouts. Here is, John, the overview of what that 20 to 80 scale truly means.
Yeah, well, you know, it's 20-80 for a myriad of reasons. There's a lot of math that goes into that. But to me, the thing that stands out is you don't see too many. The stars have 60s, 70s, 80s. You know, very rare to see. An 80 is a guy like a Billy Hamilton speed. And to me sticks out. A 20 would be like a Johnny Damon's throwing arm. But Johnny Damon's throwing arm did not keep him from having a long and prosperous major league career. Alvarez here, again, you see there's a couple of plus tools. Above average are the power and the throwing arm. But that hitting tool, you know, 40, that means below major league average. Well, the major league average right now is about 250, 260. So what we're saying is the scouts we've talked to think Dariel Alvarez would go to the major leagues, probably be about a 240 hitter, but he may have enough power for that to make him a regular.
This one hit in the air, right field, long run for O'Brien, goes into a slide and puts it away for out number 2.
Now, John, let me ask you a question. When you're dealing with the scouts, and this is a AAA All-Star game, and you have this scale in front of them, would it be different for an A-ball All-Star game with those guys because there's more projectability with those young players?
Absolutely. There's a lot less distance here as we see. Nice job by O'Brien coming over there, and I banged on his defense earlier. It makes a nice slide and catch, but you can project a little bit on O'Brien's defense because he's new there, but you don't have to project much on the bat. You see the present power right now. We saw it in the home run derby the other day. You see it when he steps in for BP in games.
It's a nice quick inning right there. Left-hander coming in throwing strikes.
Whoa, foot was in fact on the
I don't know
bag.
if I'm going to overturn it or not, but we'll just go to break and figure it
Close
out.
play at first. A 1-2-3 inning. 1-0 International League. Your favorite baseball movies are on your favorite baseball network. Clint Eastwood, Amy Adams, John Goodman, and Justin Timberlake star in Trouble with the Curve Thursday at 9 Eastern on MLB Network's Bleacher Features. Back here in Omaha, Nebraska, a new pitcher, Taylor Rogers, takes over. Improved curveball. There you have it.
And no trouble with the curve from Rogers. And left-handed hitters batting 185 against him this year. Right-handed hitters 303. Naturally, he's got 3 straight right-hand power hitters. So this is actually, I think, a good inning to watch Taylor Rogers to see his progression as he tries to be a piece of the back end of the Minnesota rotation. I talked to Mike Ratcliffe, their player personnel director, last week about Rogers. He thought he could be a piece in their bullpen now as a lefty specialist, but they see more out of him. They want him to be a starter, not just a left-handed reliever.
Peter O'Brien skies this one right center field. And Alvarez is underneath it for out number 1 here in the bottom of the 4th inning. Closer look at the numbers for Rogers. Leads the International League with 115 and 2/3 innings pitched. 10th best ERA at 3.19. 5th most strikeouts and a couple of complete games mixed in there as well.
He went to University of Kentucky. Some pretty good Kentucky big league pitchers have come out over the last 15 years. And Billy, that's what you were talking about with the wind.
Yeah, this wind's blowing in steep from right field. I think there's been 3 balls, including that one by O'Brien, that was tagged a little bit better than the results. I thought in the first inning there was one. The bottom of the first inning might have been one. And this one right here, that is steep wind coming in. It may be aiding the ball towards the left field corner, blowing from foul pole to foul pole. But you got to juice one to get it out to right.
Yeah, Pridey in the first inning, and then Trace Thompson in the second inning charged one for the International League. I think you're right.
Good panoramic of a beautiful ballpark. You can also see that pitch clock there in center field. They are implementing that. The pitch clock here, one of the many things baseball has been doing. 20 seconds in between pitches. So I'm trying to test that out of the Arizona Fall League last year. The pitch clock obviously did not translate to the major leagues, but other pace of play initiatives in play in the majors.
And right on cue, when you went to the pitch clock, it just decided to just shut off.
You know,
that was awesome, Paul.
Beautiful.
And you know, it's done its job. AAA games are down about 15 minutes a game this year from the International League and the PCL. Both are down about 15 minutes from last year. So whether it's the pitch clock or being a little tighter between innings on the promotional stuff, I think that the latter has actually been a bigger factor than the clock.
And the games at the big league level have gotten a little bit shorter. And I don't know if it's necessary to have a clock involved in this, but just let's bring awareness to it.
Yeah.
The hitter doesn't need to walk out of the batter's box and get into the grass. Now, I'm not necessarily a proponent of saying, okay, you absolutely have to keep 1 foot in the box, but just kind of be aware of what's going on and let's pick the pace up just a little bit. And I think just talking about it has done that this year.
Now, I'm kind of an advocate of, I think you need with the box. I mean, it's in the rules. I don't think it's too much to add to enforce the rules, but the clock is an extra element. I think it's good for the minor leagues to enforce that.
Yeah, but the rule book also has armpits as the strike zone, and we certainly don't have that. So not everything needs to be in there.
This is true.
As long as we bring awareness to it and you kind of, you know, we've seen Adrian Beltre this year have fun with it where he's walked out because he was kind of like taking his time. The umpires looked at him. He's jumped back in and kind of smiled at the umpire. So I think we're aware of what's going on, and the game times have actually shown that. That's a nice little breaking ball right there.
Just missed inside to Romack. And yet, Bill, to your point, Commissioner Rob Manfred said the other day, I believe he said games are down about 9 minutes from recent years. 2 balls and a strike.
It's just one less thing, one less negative that people can bring up about the game. There's just so many things that the national media likes to focus on and nitpick about baseball. That's just one less. Let's just take a little bit less of that away so we can focus on the talent on the field.
And I understand you're dealing with, I guess we assume that the baseball fan of the future doesn't have that big of an attention span.
Right.
Is that what we're going for? But there were times when the New York Yankees were good and the Boston Red Sox were good, and they were playing 4-hour games.
Right.
And I liked every minute of it.
And they were packing their fans in, and their TV ratings were great.
Right.
Yeah. 2-2 to Romack with a runner off of first. This one fouled off, stays 2 balls and 2 strikes.
The fact that the length of the game and the pace of play was getting slower as scoring was dropping, that was not a good combination. So I do like that. If we were in an offensive era, which we were in 6-7 years ago, then I think it was more acceptable. Today we're in a less action era with all the strikeouts, so you need the pace of play needs to be a little bit quicker.
This one popped up, shallow left. Going back is Machado, but giving way to Bradley, who puts it away for out number 2. But that's the thing. There is a difference between the pace of play and the length of game.
Correct.
Big difference.
And I do like the fact that you're doing it at the minor league level. The one thing I would be afraid at the big league level is there a countdown going on,
Right.
you know, in the stands? And then I'm saying, okay, now you might be turning something into a little bit of a sideshow. We certainly aren't going to see a countdown here at a AAA All-Star game, but I'm sure some low levels, if they're doing it, there's probably some fans in there that had a few red cups that are having a good time with it.
Duvall to shallow center field. That was up there for a while. Thompson puts it away for out number 3. The International League holds the lead, still at 1-0, as we take a good look at beautiful Omaha back after this. The 2015 AAA All-Star Game is brought to you by Jana King, who cleans your office for businesses around the world. Jana King is the most trusted choice. Learn more at janaking.com. A 1-0 lead here at Warner Park in Omaha, Nebraska. International League, a first inning run. That has been it to this point. Tyson Perez takes over. You see what he's done so far this season at Fresno, AAA affiliate of the Houston Astros, pitching to a 2.43 ERA in 27 games.
It's his first year above A-ball, and not just has he thrived in it, he's made himself a AAA All-Star. And went to Fresno Community College and now pitching close by, obviously, with the Astros' new affiliate this year in Fresno. A fastball, changeup, and a little slide piece.
Face Trace Thompson, Elias Diaz, and Dixon Machado here in the top of the 5th. Wind starting to pick up a little bit. A quarter after 8 o'clock local time. It's right around that time they kept talking about those storms rolling in, so we'll see how things go as it seems like, Bill, we see a lot of games throughout the year, obviously, and it seems like everybody's in a rain delay one night or another. First half here, already 30 times they've pulled the tarp. Yeah.
That's a lot of pulling tarp. And in a minor league operation where all hands are on deck, it's not just the grounds crew, it's the ticket sales, it's the assistant GM, it's the GM.
Everybody.
They're down there pulling it.
So we'll see. Hopefully it misses us by just enough to finish this one off. The 1-2 pitch. Swing and a miss for strike 3, 1 away. Let's head down to Sam Ryan, who's down on the field with a special guest. Sam?
Yeah, Paul, with Pat O'Connor, the president and CEO of Minor League Baseball. We do this every year.
Yes,
We're
we do.
back here again this year. And, you know, I know Omaha, this is a different site. The first time the AAA All-Star Game is here in Omaha. This, generally, we see the College World Series here.
Right.
How are you able to feed off of the buzz that generates and make this your own event?
Well, you know, contrary to the past where when there was one stadium in Omaha, we would have to be out of town for 3 weeks so they could play the College World Series. What we're able to do now is peacefully coexist, so there is a buzz about baseball in the area, and we're able to capitalize on that, and I think they're drawing record crowds. Omaha's drawing record crowds, so it surely proves that there's enough energy, there's enough interest, and there are enough fans to do both.
2016 goes to Charlotte. They were awarded that earlier in the year and back in February. What preparations are underway already? How's it coming along?
Well, you know, it's an incredible task to do this, and Dan Rakowski and Scotty Brown, the people there, Don Beaver in Charlotte, are, you know, well on their way. They're here. They send their contingent here to see what's happening. You know, it's a monumental task, but they're up to it, and we'll have a great game there in Charlotte as well.
You know, every year we see the AAA All-Star players, and we've seen Matt Harvey, we've seen Will Myers, we've seen Michael Wacha play in these games last year, Steven Souza Jr., Jock Peterson hit a home run of the game. What does that mean to you when you see these young players succeed on the major league level?
Well, at the very least, it means we're doing our job. We're getting these young men into the big leagues, making them big league ready, big league serviceable. And, you know, George Brett talked today at lunch about how close these young men really are, and it brings it home, because there's a name out there even we haven't mentioned tonight who's going to be in the big leagues either in September or start next year in the big leagues and have a long career.
Pat, thank you so much for your time, and we will see you in Charlotte next year, 2016, Paul.
Sam, thank you so much. I would assume he's talking about Corey Seager, by the way. Take a look here at what will probably go down as an infield single. Bill, you're the official score, right?
It's a single. There's no doubt about it. That's a very difficult play. If he would have made it. Now, what I would have liked to seen was pick that thing up the first time. Once that ball's on the ground, don't panic. Make sure you pick it up, and then you have a chance. As soon as you fumble it, you have no chance.
Jackie Bradley Jr. takes upstairs, 1 ball and no strikes.
You know, I'd like to talk a little bit about what Pat was talking about with the College World Series and AAA baseball here in Omaha. Let's make no mistake about it, they're different animals.
Very different.
And there's excitement about the college baseball, but AAA baseball is one step away from the big leagues. That's not college baseball. The AAA teams would fare very well against the college teams playing in the College World Series, and I think there is room here for both, simply because they're just different animals and there's different excitement levels that surround each. That's a great jump right there.
But Machado will retreat on the foul ball, 1-2.
And Machado already has a stolen base, but I agree with you. I mean, I've been here 15 times for College World Series, Billy, and it's totally different. It's a totally different atmosphere. Now we have 2 totally different ballparks, which I think, as Pat said, allows them to peacefully coexist. The College World Series is a great event, but I love college baseball. But when I hear guys talk about, oh, the SEC or ACC are almost like AA, they doesn't know what they're talking about. That's just not comparable. The attitude and the effort level at college is higher, but the quality of play at this level. So you see guys who go to the College World Series who go to the Appy League and struggle. It's just a different animal. I mean, I say that as a friend of college baseball and an advocate
you
for
mean no disrespect by saying it.
But when people say, oh, it's equal to AA, they just, maybe there's 4 or 5 pitchers when a Sonny Gray comes through Vanderbilt or something like that, or Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer at UCLA. But even those guys needed minor league time.
Jackie Bradley Jr. won a couple of College World Series in his time at South Carolina, but he goes down by way of the K to end the top of the 5th inning. Things progressing. Everybody's having a good time here in Omaha.
Hey guys at home, how you doing? Love you, Mom.
This July, the action's really heating up on MLB Network with more than 25 live matchups. It's game on all month long. This weekend, catch Mariners-Yankees on MLB Network's Saturday afternoon baseball live at 1 Eastern. Back here in Omaha, Nebraska, Paul Severino, Bill Ripken, the editor-in-chief of Baseball America, John Manuel. Sam Ryan with us down on the field as well. As we move to the bottom of the 5th inning, Carlos Fisher takes over for the International League. 26 games, a 1-3 record, but a 1.80 ERA for the Gwinnett Braves AAA farmhand. And obviously a big turnover with the Atlanta Braves and their pitching staff, as our good buddy John Hart has gone in there and kind of cleaned house a bit as they maybe rebuild a bit, although they haven't really fallen out of the race completely. You can say that about a bunch of teams.
They've rebuilt at the minor league level and completely retooled the major league team while staying competitive. I think it's been a masterful job by John and their assistant general manager, John Capalella, and that scouting staff. I've been very, very impressed with the talent they've added to the organization.
Faces Austin Barnes, Arizmendi Alcantara, and Darnell Sweeney here in the bottom of the 5th inning.
I think they kind of got the better of the Diamondbacks here recently, picking up Touki Toussaint for basically taking on the contract of Bronson Arroyo. They picked up an extra 1st-round pick. Those are supposed to be pretty valuable assets. The Braves go out and get Toussaint just to take on the contract of Arroyo. I just thought it was another aggressive move by John and that group. They just added so many high-ceiling players. There's some high risk, but a lot pretty high-reward players.
Expedia standings in the NL East still have him 7 games back, 5 games under 500. Last couple of weeks haven't been too kind to him, but I think that at least to this point, they've kind of hung around a lot more than people would have thought, especially when they trade.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think the interesting story about that is I'm sure I'm not the only one that has been taking the Nationals to the World Series over the past few years, but you see where the New York Mets were.
Yep.
Just 2 games back off the Nationals. And with that pitching staff that the New York Mets have, if they can figure out a way to score any runs, it's going to be an interesting second half in the NL East.
The Nationals have been so banged up, but they've kind of left that door open for the Mets. And what if the Braves had a healthy Freddie Freeman in the first half? And he's not coming back to August, it sounds like now. So door's been cracked open a little bit in the National Leagues. I think I'm with you. I thought the Nationals would kind of run away with that one.
And then there's the National League Central, which is certainly up for grabs right now as Arizmendi Alcantara steps in. A little bit of major league time. You see what he's done so far with the Iowa Cubs. And we talked about it before. As he hits this one on the ground, it gets by Aguilar and into right field. And Alcantara will take second base. A 1-out double.
Another guy with some pop and some speed. And Alcantara just shows you this is not a 9-hole hitter, Billy.
Oh, and look at this right here. Once this ball gets out there into no man's land, the ease in which he runs into second base, the speed that he has, and there's no effort into this. He said, "This is just a money double, and I'll just take it."
Yeah, he's got a little bit of burst. That's what allows him to go out to center field if he needed to play center field. He can also play in the middle of the diamond. Game might be a little too fast for him at shortstop, but certainly capable at second base. But now, again, the Cubs have Addison Russell kind of ensconced there.
Darnell Sweeney takes upstairs, and yet cracking that lineup for Alcantara, as you see the numbers for Sweeney, for Alcantara, cracking that lineup, whether it's 2015, 16, 17, or maybe even 18, may be something of a challenge.
Yeah, he may have had his chance last year, and he struck out a lot. He definitely punched a bunch and hit for some power. Batting average is a little bit lower. Here's our look at a projected future Cubs lineup, and a lot of those guys are already there. And the forgotten man is the second baseman, Javier Baez, who's had a lot of off-field issues this year. We moved Russell to center field there just to squeeze everybody in. I mean,
wow.
Somebody's going to get moved.
But you moved him.
I moved him. He can run a little bit better than the rest of those guys. So, and to me, center field's still a glamour position. But of course, the other X factor there is Castro.
Right.
You know, that's a marketable, major league established shortstop, and those are in short supply.
I think your other X factor is Baez. When you're sitting there and you're seeing the struggles that he went through, and you're putting him in second base. Now, I love the fact that this dude looks like he could hit 35.
Right.
But hasn't necessarily shown the consistency that's needed to be able to do that. He's got raw power, sick power.
Oh, yeah.
But that could be an X factor, too.
Yeah, he was making progress this year, and off-field issues have kept him out of the lineup a lot this season. It almost has been a lost year for him so far at Iowa.
And that's a shame, too, because he's in a situation where you really can't afford to lose that year.
And so many guys could just pass him up. And Alcantara, it's kind of happened a little bit to him with Addison Russell jumping up right from AA. You know, that's the way a lot of teams do it. I mean, AAA, you have more skilled players. AA is a tools level. And with those tools Addison Russell has, he jumps straight into Chicago's big league lineup.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that was not the original plan, right? To keep him up long term as he has?
You know, I'm not sure if it was or not, but he's definitely held his own.
This one hit a mile up on the right side of the infield as Beresford puts it away for the second out.
But the Cubs, again, they've been very consistent under Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer and Jason McLeod. Athletes taking bats at the top of the draft. You see Alcantara, he has shown the good pop. He's always a double-digit home run guy. Desi Wilson worked with him a lot at the AA level and gets a lot of credit for that. A little trouble with spin. He has trouble with the curve, and that has led to some of that swing and miss, and that's why he's hitting ninth in a lineup like this, where he really profiled better at the top of the lineup with that power speed mix.
So he's on second base after the double, as Jason Pridey takes in there for a called strike. Pridey 1 for 2, flew out in the first and singled, but was stranded back in the third.
Jason looks like his approach is really sound. Looks very hitterish, to use that term again. Doesn't look like he does a whole lot of things wrong at home plate, which tells me he's probably not going to go through too many prolonged skids because he looks so sound at home plate.
This is one of my favorite guys coming up in the minor leagues. He's 31 years old now. He had a long talk pregame. He's got, he wanted to thank the Nashville Sounds for flying his wife and kids out here. He's got a 20-month-old and a 3-year-old are out here. His mom and dad are at the game. So at age 31, I think he's savoring where he is in his pro career right now, as opposed to letting it get the better of him. That he's been in AAA pretty much every year from 2007 on, with some big league time mixed in there.
Right. And he's played for a bunch of organizations: the Rays, the Twins, the Mets, the Phillies, the Orioles, the Rockies, the A's. I mean, he has certainly bounced around. But those major league veterans, as we talked about in the open, those are the guys that you have to have in your system. I mean, we could talk prospects all we want, futures game and all that stuff, but you do need that sort of depth in your rotation.
And for whatever reason, sometimes players that have success at the AAA level can't quite get it done at the big league level. But you hit it, Paul. They make the prospects better because they're a solid baseball player.
You need that depth in your system. A 1-0 lead, N5 here in Omaha. Follow your favorite team and players every day with MLB.com At Bat, the #1 app for live baseball. At Bat is up to the moment at any moment with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, StatCast, and more. Get MLB.com At Bat right now. Boy, does that make our life easier at the network every night. As we watch a ton of baseball games, there's just one game on the docket tonight, at least in AAA. And that's right here in Omaha, Nebraska, where David Goforth takes over for the Pacific Coast League. Part of the Milwaukee Brewers system, 28 games with them, a 2.65 ERA, 26 strikeouts in 34 innings.
High 90s velocity from Goforth. He'll be one of the harder throwers in the game tonight, and a little cutter he likes to mix in.
James Beresford, third trip to the plate today, walked and scored back in the first inning.
If Plesac was here, would he have some sort of nickname for Goforth already?
Probably.
There'd be something in that direction?
Yeah, I would think so. For sure. As Beresford with a base hit through the left side. Hitting second today behind Jackie Bradley Jr., who is downstairs with Sam Ryan. Sam?
Jackie Bradley Jr. back in Omaha. What is it like for you to be back here where you were in the College World Series?
It's a lot of fun to be back, where I played in college ball, twice, and a little bit with, Team USA. It's just a surreal feeling to be back out here and having family to support me.
2 years in a row, and you even tweeted back where it all started from. The memories. What was your favorite memory here in Omaha?
Favorite memory was probably hitting a home run on Father's Day for my dad, and kind of telling him that I wanted to do that for him, before the game, and I think it kind of brought tears to his eyes once I did it.
Because you forgot to wish him a happy Father's Day earlier, didn't you?
I didn't forget. Okay. I made him think that I forgot.
Oh, okay.
So I wrote down on a Father's Day card, pretty much how I appreciate him coming out here supporting me, and that he pretty much means the world to me.
And you hit the home run for him.
Yes.
Starting in left field tonight. When was the last time? I know you played in left field, but when was the last time you actually started a game in left field?
2013. I believe, first time ever starting in left field.
And that nice spin move there that you made, yeah. Can you explain that to us?
It was hit really well, so I just wanted to turn around, whether it was the wrong way or not, real fast, and just get back to the wall as quick as possible. And as y'all can see, the wind's howling a little bit, so I was able to get my head back around and pick it up as soon as I could and make a catch at the wall.
Coming in the third inning, we're taking a look at that right now. And I also want to ask you about a former teammate of yours with the Red Sox, and Jose Iglesias, who's now with the Tigers. He played in the All-Star game last night. What do you think of his play, and what did you see back then in Boston?
Definitely. He made a great play yesterday. I think it was a backhand play and one hop to the first baseman, which, that's what he wanted to do. It was something that I've always seen. He's spectacular ball player, and I saw a player who was good, just grinding, and he got to where he wants to be, and you can tell the hard work that he's put in, and it's really paying dividends for him.
Thank you so much for your time, Jackie. Thank you. Guys, back to you.
Sam, thank you so very much. As Kyle Roller a moment ago, pinch hitter, got the base hit up the middle. So now Beresford at second, Roller at first, and another pinch hitter, Tyler Henson, swings and sends this one in the air down the left field line, but it will come awfully close to the carousel down there.
That seems like that would be a nice spot to camp out for foul balls.
I would think so,
line.
For sure. See what Henson's done at Lehigh Valley. Good look there. Again, a lot more than just baseball here when it comes to the fan experience at Werner Park. The carousel, the basketball court, the petting zoo on the weekends, and a hot shot to short. They go the short way for one, and there are two away on the fielder's choice. Just heard Jackie Bradley Jr. talking about his trips to Omaha, but back then, the first time at least, it was at Rosenblatt Stadium.
Yeah, he's, according to Steve Pivovar, the World Herald here in Omaha, he's the first player to play in all three ballparks. He played in Rosenblatt 2010, TD Ameritrade Park in 2011, and this one here in Werner Park now. And obviously, Rosenblatt used to house both the professional team and the College World Series. Now they've split them up, two 5-year-old ballparks here in Omaha. TD Ameritrade, a little bit bigger than this one, about 26,000 seats downtown.
One fouled back off the bat of Matt Davidson, who is 0 for 2, a strikeout in the second and a ground out back in the fourth.
It was pretty amazing, though, for South Carolina. They won back-to-back national championships, two different ballparks, two different very offensive eras. 2010 was old, kind of nuclear bats. 2011, a little bit more dead era, and they beat some great players in those 2 finals.
Runner on the move, no throw down to second base, and now 2 runners in scoring position with 2 away here in the top of the 6th.
And that's just a strategic play right there where you're saying, you know what, we're not going to let him steal a run. We think we're in the driver's seat with 2 outs. I'm going to worry about the hitter right here and not take a chance on throwing down to second base and giving up a run from the guy on third.
And it seems like Goforth, when you get to the big leagues, Billy, you have to hold runners pretty well as a relief pitcher in the big leagues. Letting guys run all over you is kind of frowned upon, is it not?
Well, the old days, the closer didn't worry about it too much because they said you can't steal home. And I'm not too worried about it because I got the stuff to get you out. But you're right, you've got to start paying attention a little bit more.
1-0 International League on top here in Omaha. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the International League of Professional Baseball Clubs Incorporated, the Pacific Coast League of Professional Baseball Clubs Incorporated, and the National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues Incorporated, and is intended solely for the private, non-commercial use of our audience. Publication, reproduction, retransmission, or other use of the pictures, descriptions, or accounts of this game without the express written consent of the aforementioned parties is prohibited. Back here in Omaha, Nebraska, Paul Severino with Bill Ripken, who said he was going to take care of the copyright but decided against it. And the editor-in-chief of Baseball America, John Manuel, here as well. Jan Marinez takes over. 25 games at AAA Durham, a 4-1 record and a 2.18 ERA, 45 strikeouts in 41 innings pitched.
So, Paulie, did you come after me with the copyright because you know I have a little trouble reading? Is that what you did?
No.
Right there?
No trouble with this one. High and deep to left field, and it gets out for the home run.
That's the wind we're talking about because that ball was not driven out of the ballpark, but foul pole to foul pole, right to left is the way that wind's blowing. And that got up into the jet stream nicely. Found its way in that corner for a homer.
Christian Adames' first at bat of the night, and first swing takes it just over the left field wall down in the corner, and it's a 1-1 ball game in the bottom of the 6th.
Well, both Jackie Bradley and Tyler Henson in left field are looking at each other like, how'd that get out? But it's just what you talked about, Billy, the wind. You can see the route here wasn't picture perfect, but that's because of the way the wind was taking that ball out to left field.
There are an awful lot of ballparks, I think, that favor left-hand hitters, but this one here in Omaha seems to favor the right-hander or a left-hander that can hit the ball the opposite way. Left field line is shorter than the right field line, and it looks like straightaway left is the place to go because the wind seems to be tracking the ball in that direction.
O'Brien steps in. A walk and a fly out to his credit tonight. Takes outside, 1 ball and a strike. Here's another look at the home run from Adames.
This guy's only hit 25 home runs in his career in the minor league, so I don't think off-field power is usually his forte, and he's having a good chuckle about it now.
Yeah, probably not, but let's give him credit for smart hitting.
That's
because
right.
if you play the elements, it's all good.
And that was Tyler Holt, who came in left field. Jackie Bradley moves over to center, and Henson now in right. Obviously, you get to that midway point of an all-star game, changes start getting made. There's a whole host of changes on the infield as well. We'll pass along in a moment. Right after this 2-1 pitch to Peter O'Brien. This one is laced to left field, but it stays in the yard, and a little bit of an adventure out there for Holt.
And that swing right there and that stance in the setup, I said it earlier, Chris Bryant, the young player for the Chicago Cubs, and what he can do. I mean, this looks like it is a very short, compact stroke from a large human. The head stays down. That's a good swing right there. That's just to hang with him.
Well, that was a great, that ball was scalded. And to be a much better, really a better looking swing, better at bat than what Adames had. But Adames gets a home run to left field, and O'Brien's on the bench. This kind of baseball, very fickle sometimes with your process doesn't always lead to the great result.
This is Jet Bandy as he pinch hits for Cody Decker here in the 6th inning. That's Holt out in left field. He's already seen some action in the 35 seconds he's been out there. Bradley takes over in center field, and Henson is out in right. Infield changes as well. We will start at third base as Irving Falou has taken over. Played here in Omaha. No longer a member of that organization, however. Martinson at short, Hansen at second base, and Kyle Roller is the new first baseman for the International League. So you're all caught up as Bandy tests Holt once again.
Jet Bandy. That is a big league name right there.
It is.
Jet Bandy.
Yeah. Comes from a couple different generations, right?
Yeah,
His
it's a
family.
merger of his grandfather and father's name, Chet, and I forget, I guess John.
Yeah.
I think it's John.
Well,
John and
I'm
Chet.
on board.
They
I'm
went
on board
Chet.
with the name. It's a big league name. You keep swinging it like that.
And went down and got that one. You know, he's got a tough call there, Billy, because he's a catcher in the Angels organization. And Mike Scioscia there, we know the power that Mike Scioscia has in that organization. You have to catch and receive and throw to a certain level to play catcher for Mike Scioscia.
So a runner on first, as you heard the good hand for Cheslor Cuthbert, part of the hometown Omaha Storm Chasers, getting his first AB here in the bottom of the 6th, and takes a called strike. Saw a little bit of big league time a couple of weeks ago, but here's what he has done so far here in Omaha: 8 home runs, 33 RBIs.
He played well up in Kansas City, hit the ball well, fielded competently at third base. Pretty much all they were asking him to do.
And he was called up when Mike Moustakas left the club for a couple of days.
It's this throwing arm profiles at third base. He's more of a step and dive kind of guy defensively over there, but short swing. They're still waiting on the power to develop. But I think he's the only player in the minor leagues from the Corn Islands, a couple of small islands off the eastern coast of Nicaragua.
You don't learn that every day, Paul.
I have never been.
The Corn Islands. I like it.
Swings and misses at 96 miles an hour, 2 away.
That's a good heater right there. Up, down the middle. It's an easy pitch to see and a tough pitch to hit.
96 on the stadium gun from Marinez, who's been up to 98 miles an hour. And has already been up to the big leagues. Got to the big leagues in 2010 with the Marlins. Still only 26 years old, so he got there young. He has not found the right mix to stay there. Getting there is a little bit easier than staying there.
That is correct. A lot of people talk about getting to the big leagues. Yes, it is a tough road, but staying there when all these guys are down below you trying to get there, it's a tougher thing.
Faces Adam Duvall here in the 6th.
This is that punch-out pitch I talked about before. That's an easy pitch to see. You see it good, but it's a tough pitch to get on top of and hit at 96.
Interesting story. He played for a handful of organizations, has Marinez. 0-1 to Duvall, popped up and will reach the seats. 0-2. Was one of 2 players traded by the Marlins to the White Sox in exchange for manager Ozzie Guillen. That was after the 2011 season. That is something you don't see or hear about every day.
No, you don't. That's about all I have for you there,
Thank
Paul.
you. I appreciate that.
That seems like a long time ago.
I saw that big stack of notes. Apparently that wasn't in there. All right, fantastic. He has played for, as I mentioned, a handful of organizations: Detroit, the Dodgers, the White Sox, the Marlins, and the Rays. So he's bounced around trying to find a home with the Tampa Bay Rays right now, 10th year in minor league baseball, or in professional baseball, I should say.
Well, at 26, certainly have time to get back there, and you have time on your side to be productive with a team for a period of time. 95, 96, 97, nothing wrong with that. You hit your spots, you're going to get people out.
The 1-2 to Adam Duvall. Did not go. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
He's working with a new pitching coach down in Durham, Kyle Snyder, who used to pitch here in Omaha. Was a Royals first-round pick back in 1999. I don't think Kyle ever threw this hard. But Neil Allen was in Durham for a long time, now up in the big leagues, pitching coach up in Minnesota. They've been pretty resurgent there.
Duvall swings and misses, and once again the mid-90s. But it's a 1-1 ball game now after the Christian Adames home run the other way. Just enough to get out. Tie this ball game up at 1 as we go to the 7th here in Omaha. Thursday on MLB Network, you voted them in as baseball's greatest living players. Now Bob Costas sits down with these all-time greats. MLB Network presents Aaron, Bench, Koufax, and Mays Thursday at 8 Eastern on MLB Network. Paul Severino, Bill Ripken, editor-in-chief of Baseball America, John Manuel. And boy, oh boy, that was a tough list to whittle down to just 4, wouldn't you say? Greatest living players?
Well, and it also goes back to like Hall of Fame time for MLB, right? It is the sport that everybody seems to care a little bit more about when it comes to those things. And yes, it is a tough list. I'd say it's going to be a very hard list to whittle down, but at least it gets everybody talking about it. And their favorite player that was left off, you can have an argument, and it's all good.
Or even non-favorite player who was left off. I mean, I don't know how many people favorite player is Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see him left off a list for me when you're saying greatest living ball players.
I might have been able to leave him off. Just saying, John.
Ryan Buchter takes over on the mound and gets some action on the comebacker off the bat of Tyler Holt. One quick out here in the top of the 7th inning. Saw the numbers for Buchter. He's kept opponents scoreless in 22 of his first 23 appearances this season.
Is that good?
That's good. It was
All right.
11 2/3 innings to start the season and 16 innings to finish the first half. So he's rolling right about now.
And even in the middle when he gave up a run, probably wasn't too shabby.
Right. It wasn't like he gave up 14
Right.
runs. Austin Romine will get his
Hey now.
first at bat here and takes one up and in. The old bow tie from Buchter. 1-0.
So your first plate appearance, you've been sitting around for a couple hours, stiff, and then you get up there and see this one right out of the gate.
And then that one low and in. But did he go? The answer is no. 2 balls and no strikes.
Buchter's one of those effectively wild. Walk rate over 5 innings. I don't think he always knows where it's going. He's got a little nuke lelouch from the left side in him here.
So you should have used that joke last year. You probably did when we were in Durham.
I might have.
You probably did.
It's not a deep repertoire. That's one that's gone to frequently.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Interesting thing about Austin Romine is that he and another guy we've talked a lot about, Peter O'Brien, have been on that list. It seems like, John, we talked about, and maybe still do, Yankees catchers year after year after year. And these two guys obviously have been on that list. Romine has been up, he's been down. Peter O'Brien has obviously been traded, but as you take a look here at the scouting report, what does Austin Romine bring to the table?
Well, you know, he does have some catch and throw skills. I think the receiving's gotten better. The arm strength's always been ahead of the receiving for him, and I think that the emphasis on receiving has been part of the problem for him. The other part, though, is just the bat hasn't progressed. Early in the career, he really showed some significant power for a catcher, for a young catcher. You know, 13 home runs in the Florida State League. As a 20-year-old, that's tough to do. But John Ryan Murphy's really the guy who kind of has become that backup catcher, and Francisco Cervelli before them, and have beat those guys to the big leagues as that backup catcher.
Romine takes the 1-out walk, and speaking of the big leagues, his brother Andrew has spent some time in the bigs as well, a 6-year major league veteran, and their dad Kevin, 7 years in the major leagues. So the Romine family all seeing a little bit of time. Bill, do you know anything? I mean, this is not exactly up your alley. Do you know anything about family ties?
About a family tree that's played in the big leagues?
Anything? Can you give us anything on that?
I can give you a little bit on that, but this is impressive. Anytime you see it, we already talked about getting to the big leagues is hard, staying there is harder, but having multiple members of the family get there really makes you sit back and think. And it does me how fortunate I actually was. I played alongside my brother for 5.5 years to begin my career and managed by Dad. I mean, that was about as cool a thing I think as I've done in my career, and it wasn't anything that I did on the field.
Right.
It was just the moment.
Yeah. Jason Martinson swings through that one 0-2.
You know, going back to what John was talking about with Romine and his arm was ahead of his receiving, The arm to me is last as far as the catcher is concerned. I want to see a catcher receive well. I want to see him be able to have a relationship and handle his pitching staff well, block balls in the dirt, which keeps people on the base that they've already earned and don't give them more. The arm comes last. So if you have a catcher that can do the other three things, the arm kind of can go a little bit on the wayside. Now, having a strong arm, I dig it.
Right.
I like it. But there's other things you have to put emphasis on to be a good catcher at the big league level.
There's Tomas Telis, who's now catching for the PCL, and he's got a great arm too. But I think you're exactly right, and that's changed about evaluations of catchers over the years, Billy. Because I think when I started at BA, I don't know this many years ago, when we profiled out catchers, arm strength was first. That arm strength was the number one thing they looked for, and you'd see a lot of catchers, amateurs, drafted second, third round with 6-7 arms on that 2 to 8 scale, and guys who really could really peg it down to second base, and there was so much other development to do. And that's one of the reasons why first round, second round pick catchers have a pretty tough track record in the draft.
And you look at arm strength, and yeah, you can see it and it gets you excited. It's a wow factor, but you really have to watch a guy handle himself behind home plate. How does he move in and out? Does he receive the ball softly? And like I said, I would rather have a guy that could block a ball in the dirt and keep that runner on third base, where you allow your pitcher to throw his split finger with 2 strikes to try to get a punch out, instead of somebody actually throwing somebody out at second on a steal attempt.
Martinson strikes out for the second out here in the 7th inning. So obviously a lot about the defense of Austin Romine, or what you're looking for defensively in a catcher, as you take a look here at the strikeout. But the Yankees have been an organization that have kind of focused on that offensive catcher too.
They really have. I mean, why wouldn't they? Historically they had Bill Dickey, they had Yogi Berra, they had Elston Howard, Thurman Munson, Jorge Posada. These are their championship catchers. These are all offense first guys. Berra, arguably the best catcher of all time. Bill Dickey's a Hall of Famer. Thurman Munson was having a great career, obviously cut short early. So this is the template that organization has used to win 27 championships. So why wouldn't they? They've learned the lesson that offense plays behind the plate for them.
Jackie Bradley Jr. takes upstairs, 2 balls and no strikes. Bradley 0 for 3 tonight with a couple of strikeouts.
Of course, they had another hyped prospect who was going to be in this game, Jesus Montero, traded to the Mariners a few years ago for Pineda, now back in the big leagues with Seattle. And they had Gary Sanchez in the futures game.
That'll reach the seats.
I'm going to throw a little comp out here on Ryan Butcher. When you see him wearing the Dodger uni, so you're thinking about a big lefty, maybe Clayton. No, I'm not going that way. I'm going to go against a rival and think about the guy in the San Francisco. There's more of a Bumgarner type little pause. He doesn't have as much of a crossfire, and the angle doesn't look the same, but there's a lot of similarities I see with that slow, deliberate delivery, and he looks like he's a big human out there on the mound.
He doesn't have Bumgarner's back, but who does? But he does have that kind of slow, then like slinger kind of delivery, with the arm almost has to catch up to the rest of his body. That's an interesting look from the side. But this is the issue for this is why he's still in AAA. He's got big league stuff, but he just has not commanded the strike zone. Again, more than 5 walks per 9.
Alan Hansen gets his first trip to the plate. Took over at second base for James Beresford, who scored that only run for the International League back in the first. Hansen had the count 1 ball and no strikes.
Beresford had a nice game. He had 2 knocks. He's took command of the infield in those first 5 innings when he was in. It was a good look for James Beresford tonight.
Swings and misses a ball and a strike. And we took a look at a future lineup earlier. This is what it might look like if we project out to 2018, and Hansen is in there at second base. So is the guy we saw a lot of earlier in this game behind the plate, Elias Diaz. And of course that terrific outfield that's there right now of Marte, McCutchen, and Polanco. 2-1.
That's why they moved Josh Bell from the outfield to first base. We saw him homer Sunday in Cincinnati. Not pictured in that lineup was their 2013 first rounder. Their 2 first rounders from that year, a catcher, Reese McGuire, and then their first pick that year was Austin Meadows, a high school outfielder. It'll be tough to break into that outfield. You take a look at it again. I mean, who's going to move Marte, McCutchen, and Polanco out? Those 3 guys are special.
And there's a few top picks in that rotation as well. We know what Garrett Cole's bringing to the table. We haven't yet seen Glasnow and Tyon. Yeah. Obviously, we know Liriano as well.
Yeah, Tyler Glasnow, their top prospect, 6'7", and it's downhill, and he's athletic as all get out. Big Tyler Glasnow fan, but both Tyon and Kingham coming off Tommy John surgery, missing this year. They're supposed to be a AAA. And that's just a midseason top 5 prospect list we did there. And yeah, the Pirates just continue to be a player development machine, and they've done a really nice job with it. You saw Cole Tucker there, last year's first rounder. Took another shortstop this year in Kevin Newman. They've got depth. They've gone for athletes. The Red Sox, to me, they've spent so much internationally. Red hot Yohan Moncada in the lower minor leagues, contributing to them being #1.
The 2015 AAA All-Star Game is brought to you by Gildan, official national partner of AAA Baseball. Gildan, every thread counts. Now, you may have seen this viral video in the last few months. Jeff Francoeur getting pranked big time. Take a look.
It's been a lot of fun to play with Jorge. He's overcome, obviously, a lot. Being a deaf baseball player is very tough in this game, and to see the way he's done it and handled himself has been awesome.
Hello, my name is Jorge Reyes, and I'm definitely not deaf.
I saw Jeff in the dugout, and he's like, "Way to go! Nice job!"
Jeff, I'm sorry I had to be the one to do this to you.
And joined right now by the brainchild behind that short film, as well as many others, Cody Decker. Yeah. Tell me about that and what the prank was on Jeff Francoeur.
Well, Jeff Francoeur signed with the Padres last year with about a week left of spring training. And if you've ever met Frenchie, it's very easy to convince him anything. So we told him that we had a new pitcher who was hearing impaired, and that player at no point did a impression of a hearing impaired person, but Frenchie just bought it for a month. And watching Frenchie act like an idiot was really something special.
So that went on for a month.
Yeah.
Okay, another one that you made that we're going to show now, one on Brad Ausmus.
Yes.
Okay, you can talk us through it a little bit.
Sure. Well, I played for Brad
Actually,
Ausmus.
we're going to show it right now. Okay. Let's show it.
Look, work with Dak. I know he's a project, but you only have to leave the couch for like 10 minutes. Get out there. It won't be that hot. We'll give you a hat to make sure your tan stays even.
Catching drills are hard, but man, he really gets at you. He gets at you, but it's a good thing. You know, you need that. You need that work. You need him in your ear.
Number 45.
All right, so the thought process, Cody, behind that one.
Well, I played for Brad Ausmus. He was my manager for Team Israel in the World Baseball Classic. And he's just a perfect human being. Looking, smelling, acting. He just, there's nothing he can do wrong. And I believe that from the bottom of my heart in Brad Ausmus. And just his drive, as you saw in that film, just his overall demeanor and how he really took care of me in that film. You know, he really turned around my baseball career.
He seemed very vocal in that, but Pat Murphy did seem very vocal in that. And I know we've heard that he's a fiery guy, but in your movies, he's a supporting actor in a couple of your movies, and just seems like a real fun guy. What have you learned from him?
That baseball's a game that's supposed to be treated like it's a game and fun. And I've had more fun playing for him for the last 3 years than I have playing for anybody else, probably in my life.
And real quick, Cody, I know you've done a lot for From the Heart Rescue. Tell us about that and how you've raised money for a special puppy.
There was a little dog named Scooter. Coincidentally, he needed wheels. So we gave him, he didn't have front paws, so we were able to give him wheels for his front legs. And now he's an Autobot. He's a transformer, making him literally the greatest dog who ever lived. And how we raised money was just basically we made these T-shirts, which are me. So if you ever wanted a T-shirt of a minor league scrub that you've never heard of, you can buy this. And after you're done, you could, donate to the dog charity and help them out. And it's really a good cause, and proceeds go to Scooter and other dogs like him.
Okay, how can we find the T-shirt?
Oh, you go, basically just follow me on Twitter at Decker6, shameless plug, and I will direct you to exactly where to go. I plug it literally every other hour because I don't really have much of a life.
And it's a good look, Cody. It is.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel good about it.
What do you think, guys?
I think he's wearing it very well. Sam, you should try that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, why not?
I'm starting trends.
Cody, Sam, thank you so much. Tomas Talise retired to lead off the bottom of the 7th inning. That was his first at bat of the night. So Arizmendi Alcantara steps in with one away here in the bottom of the 7th inning. John, you'd never know it, but you said theater major, right, in college?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Plays to the camera quite well, I'd say.
Cody's practiced. He went to UCLA for not just for baseball. It was a teammate of Brandon Crawford there in 2008. So I mean, he's had, again, he's a funny guy. I think he has a future in media if he wants it, but he's had a really good minor league career. That's the other part that does get overshadowed, I think, a little bit sometimes by his personality. But he's not shy. He's not shy on Twitter. He's worth a follow.
He's able to keep a straight face. He had sunflower seeds and Gatorade cups and telling all sorts of stories. 96 miles an hour from Gregory Infante, the new pitcher here in the bottom of the 7th inning. 34 games and a 2.63 ERA in Buffalo this year.
And this is what he does. He challenges hitters with fastballs, and he does not have fine command, but he'll be up to 96, 97 miles an hour pretty regularly.
He's worked quite a bit. Tied for the 4th most appearances in the International League. 34 times his number's been called to come out and help that Buffalo club.
Yeah, with Toronto's pitching issues, it just takes a hot streak really from Gregory Infante to maybe be a guy who makes an impact there.
Goes with the pitch, does Alcantara, but played nicely at shortstop by Martinson, and there are 2 away here in the 7th.
Yeah, I think looking at him, there's a lot that Toronto should like about him. Big man, looks like he says, I'm coming after you. Here it is, hit it. If you can command the strike zone with that stuff, he's got a chance. They need an arm. They need another arm, whether it's a starter or whether it's a reliever.
They probably need
this
more than
looks
one.
good.
They might need more than one, but it's a short look at Infante.
That's it. As we get to the first couple of outs here in the 7th inning, as the lineup card turns over for the Pacific Coast League, we'll see Travis Tyrone, and he'll see a new pitcher when we come back. Back here in Omaha, Sean Armstrong, the new pitcher, as he faces Travis Tyrone here with 2 away in the bottom of the 7th inning. Armstrong comes in to take over for Gregory Infante, who got the first couple of outs. And now a swing and a miss. A look here at what Armstrong has done in Columbus, AAA affiliate of the Indians, in 32 games, 53 strikeouts, and that leads all Columbus relievers. And he's done it in just 34 1/3 innings pitched. In there for a called strike 2 to Tyrone. And who knew that the Mets actually had anybody in their system that wasn't a pitcher? I had no idea. Seems like that's all we've been talking about.
They've got some prospects on that Mets farm system. They probably would have been 6th on that list of top 5 farm systems I did. They're right in there. And you see Tyrone, swing can't get long, but he impacts the baseball. So when he gets something middle in, Billy, that's where he's looking for. That's his happy zone. And tonight would be a good night to get one in there for him.
Not with that pitch. Sean Armstrong came in and meant business right there. There was some pace. There was a purpose with that 1 out.
Tied at 1 as we go to the 8th in Omaha. Welcome back to Warner Park in Omaha, Nebraska, as we go to the top of the 8th inning. It is a 1-1 ball game, tight-knit affair to this point. Crowd's having a good time, and why not? It's been a good ball game.
At least 2 of them are having a good time, doing their little dance together.
That's also true. It's a young ballpark, but back on April 16th, 2011, this was the starting lineup that the Omaha Storm Chasers put out on the field. A lot of these names have made big impacts at the big league level. Irving Falou has been one of those guys who has been up and down, helped the Royals at times, and now finds himself in the batter's box for the AAA All-Star Game in 2015. But he was in that first game here in 2011, now a member of the, they're not booing him, they're Falouing him, I would assume, right?
Do you think they're doing Lou? Are you doing both?
Lou,
the Falou, or
maybe just Lou, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify that it was not booing. That's
I want to go with the
point.
Falou from here on out.
Sure, why
I
not?
kind of like the 2-syllable.
I like that.
I'm with Billy.
All right.
Let's see if we can make that a thing.
Falou!
That's right. Now a member of the Reds organization, hitting over 300.
About 7 of those guys on opening night 2011 for the Storm Chasers in the big leagues right now. Even down to their 9th hole hitter, Paulo Orlando, who's been a nice extra outfielder for the Royals this year. David Lowe, who's doing that over in Baltimore.
He's 5th in the International League with a .309 batting average. And in fact, he got a good hand. 3rd most games in Omaha history. 2nd most hits. 3rd most runs. 10th most doubles and 4th most steals. So he is obviously, in the time spent in Omaha, made an impact at this level.
And that's why they were falooing it.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
There's no doubt.
And they still are.
The fa is silent.
Nick Whitgren, the new pitcher for the Pacific Coast League here in the 8th.
Marlins organization. Plays for Andy Haynes down in New Orleans. We were lucky enough to hang out some with Andy down in the Fall League last year, Paul. Just I have to imagine that's a good manager to play for. That guy's just all about his players, and the energy that he brings to the ballpark was outstanding to see in the Fall League. You see Whitgren really pounds the strike zone.
A good hop at short for Adames, who throws to first, and there's one away here in the 8th. Now, those might be boos after the 6-3 ground out. Those might be boos.
Come on, dude.
You sure? All right, that's probably. He did tip his cap. Only you pull a move like that, right?
What?
Getting booed, tipping your cap.
Yeah, I probably tipped a few other things when I got booed.
So Kyle Roller will step in with 1 out in the 8th. Takes upstairs. A ball and no strikes. Roller, a first baseman in the Yankees system. And it would be easy to say, yeah, he'd probably be blocked by a Mark Teixeira. But there's also a guy in Greg Bird who, John, you mentioned the Fall League, put together a terrific November and October, I guess, as well last year. He's also been called up to AAA, has been up there for a couple of weeks now. So there's a bit of a logjam in the race for Teixeira's backup, and at least the season that Teixeira's had doesn't look like he's going anywhere anytime soon.
And one guy in Bird signed for more than $1 million out of high school in Colorado, and Kyle Roller was a senior signed $10,000 out of East Carolina. So Kyle Roller kind of has to earn everything he gets. I'm not saying Greg Bird doesn't, but Greg Bird is the priority guy in the organization. He's also a little bit better pure hitter, but Roller, you can see that's a strength-based young man there out of Rockingham County.
Strength-based.
Yes.
I like it.
Strength for pull power is what I wrote in the report. Looks for the fastball, and he does use the whole field better. He had a good BP the other day on the workout day. Just an opposite field, bigger part of the field approach. But the dead pull approach would work pretty well at Yankee Stadium. You don't have to be 6 foot 250 to muscle it out from the left side in the new Yankee Stadium.
Tyler Henson steps in as a meeting on the mound as Tomas Talis goes out to talk with Whitgren.
Whitgren kind of has that crossfire delivery a little bit. That lead leg kind of lands toward third base, and then right arm comes over, and he has to kind of go cross his body to get to the strike zone. And that's generally been his strength, has been throwing a lot of strikes. He doesn't have premium stuff, but he does have very good control for a relief pitcher. But it's kind of left him a little bit here in this 8th inning.
Swing and a miss. 1-1.
And then you see 89, Billy. You just don't see a lot of relief pitchers come out of big league bullpens in 2015 throwing 89, do you?
Right, but when you have a little bit of crossfire that you talked about, there's a little deception to it. And sometimes 89 plays might have a little life if he hides it. It's got a little jump towards the hitter.
Yep.
That one may have gotten caught in the lights for Peter O'Brien. It's in and out of his glove, and it'll most certainly go down as an E9, 2 aboard, 1 out here in the top of the 8th. He was there in plenty of time. You just saw him look at the lights as well. It's that's tough to navigate no matter how many games you've played out in the outfield.
And sometimes when the ball gets in there, yeah, you could clearly see he was doing his best not to get hit in his bean himself, putting up his glove at the last moment.
Almost got an out at second base. Actually, pretty decent base running by Roller. Kind of went a little bit of a third of the way and then wound up beating the throw to second base.
Matt Davidson takes a called strike. 4th trip to the plate for him, so it looks like he'll be in here for the duration. 14 home runs and 47 RBIs. Mentioned it earlier, was in the 2013 AAA All-Star game as a member of the Reno Aces, so was the hometown kid a few years back, and now playing in Charlotte.
This is a power hitter, power approach, Billy, but this kind of goes back to what you talked about earlier with being a run producer. Run producer here, you steer one through the right side with that big hole if you can and bring that runner home from second base. You don't need the home run. But Matt Davidson seems like the report on him over the years has been he's pretty much a home run hitter. The strikeouts come in some bunches.
2 runners aboard, 1 out here in the top of the 8th inning. Not since the first has the International League scored a run. And that got a really good piece of Davidson. So right after I assume he'll be in for the duration, he takes one off the wrist.
He's not leaving now. But you're right. He's sitting here in an all-star game going, okay, do I need this? On the back forearm. Just misses the lead elbow. Oh, hits him right on the forearm. That's going to leave a mark.
I mean, if you get hit and it hurts, but is the forearm probably better than the wrist, right?
Yes. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but that hurt. It got him clean.
So after the Faluk ground out, it's gone walk, E9, and hit by pitch. That's how the bases have become loaded here with 1 out in the 8th inning, as Tyler Holt will get his second trip to the dish. Grounded back to the mound in his first trip back in the 7th. One of a few scoring opportunities, or I should say few scoring opportunities for the International League since they pushed one across back in the first.
And you kind of think that that's the way it was going to be when you have the AAA All-Stars. You see these pitchers that are being thrown out there inning after inning, the ERAs that are coming in sub-2. You kind of figured it would be a low-scoring affair.
It's not like they've had lots of opportunities. They've had 6 left on base coming into this inning. So this is really the best chance the IL has had. I guess maybe the 6th inning they got Beresford to third, but not too many other scoring chances.
Good cut, but fouled straight back. 0-2.
Holt's a guy who got some big league time last year with Cleveland. Terry Francona, kind of a 4th outfielder kind of look. He can play center field, really defensive. I think he's better suited on the corners. Was an outstanding player at Florida State. Still plays with a lot of confidence. He had some swag in college. Had some swagger to him for sure. And he always has been patient at the plate. Draws his walks high on base.
That's a good sign of his patience right there. That's a nice 0-2 pitch. Right after an 0-2 pitch up and away, he fouls off. To lay off of that breaking ball, it looked like a good one and a good pitcher's pitch. He didn't even offer at it. Must be patient, must have a pretty good eye.
That's really strike zone judgment's probably, I mean, it's not a tool, but that's really his best skill that he has.
And he goes down looking for out number 2 here in the 8th inning.
And that's just nice pitching right there all the way around. The 0-2 pitch, it was fouled off, then the breaking ball that just misses. And to be able to come back and do that outside corner on an 0-2 heater, that's nice.
Yeah, Holt was looking for something off speed there, got the fastball and just took his seat. He knew it was a strike. Hey, he judged the strike zone very well there.
Well, he certainly had to protect because he knew that breaking ball just missed and he had a good approach at it. And to be able to paint him away with a heater, that was nice.
So Romine steps in now, bases loaded, 2 away. He walked back in the 7th inning. Love to see these teams push across a run, one or the other, as we're not playing any more than 10 innings tonight. So they're not afraid of what happened in Milwaukee a few years back at the big league All-Star game. Not afraid of a tie, but what is at stake here in this AAA All-Star game is the winning team, the winning league, will get home field advantage in the championship round. Now it's at a neutral site. This year it's in El Paso, but that's what's on the line for the winning league.
So what do they do if it ends in a tie?
I don't know. Go ask somebody from the league.
Flip a coin?
Maybe.
Can we coin
Could
flip
be
it?
best record.
You know what? Can we go back to Milwaukee, though? I was not offended that that game ended in a tie. The Major League All-Star game, to me, even then, still is the best of all sports All-Star game.
I agree.
Good.
By a long shot. And I'm not just saying that because we got to get off the air and go to break. I do agree with you. Line drive out. International League leaves them loaded. All the buzz, all the rumors, all the deals. The winds of change blow hardest at the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Watch a full week of coverage beginning July 27th at 10 a.m. Eastern time on MLB Network. It's the summer wind right there. That's what that is. Big Sinatra guy.
That's why I call you Paulie.
Back here in Omaha, Nebraska, Paul Severino, Bill Ripken, and the editor-in-chief of Baseball America, John Manuel. As we head to the bottom of the 8th inning, it has been a tightly contested affair. Zach Phillips takes over. 31 games, 42 strikeouts in 37 innings pitched, and he delivers upstairs to Jason Pridey, who is 1 for 3 tonight. For Phillips, second highest reliever K per 9 rate in the International League at 10.2, and the 4th lowest opponent batting average at 172. And he'll try to keep this game knotted at 1 as we play on in the 8th. And we talked about it in the open, and we just heard about the trade deadline, and rosters will shift and shake and move around, and there will be openings for some of the guys that we see here tonight, names that we have certainly heard, to make some sort of an impact at the major league level. Highlighted Souza, Suzak, and Chris Taylor from last year's game in Durham. And you wonder, John, who are some of the guys perhaps that could make an impact? Is it a guy like a Christian Adames who homered to tie this game a few innings back?
I mean, obviously Troy Tulowitzki's been out there as a name for a long time. Adames at the very least would be a stopgap shortstop potentially. A lot of these guys. John Lamb's another guy who I think sticks out to me. We haven't seen him pitch in this game, but the Royals need starting pitching, and John Lamb has gotten better this year. Former Tommy John surgery guys come up with a cutter and throws a lot more strikes with it.
Oh, nice job to get to it for Hansen, but all he could do was knock it down. He comes up empty, and it's an infield single, second hit of the night for Pridey.
And you think about the guys that might have an impact on the pennant race, and it might not be with their team, with their organization. Right. And I think that's interesting to watch this game. You don't know what organization some of these guys are playing with because they're not wearing their parent club uniforms. But some of these guys could be in that trade bait in the next 2 weeks before July 31st.
And we've seen those, especially last year, a lot of the trades weren't necessarily for prospects. They were for guys who were closer to the major leagues and had some big league time. But Drew Smiley jumps to mind. Yeah, there was a Willie Adames Class A shortstop who was a key to that deal that the Rays got from the Tigers, but they also got Drew Smiley, who was a big league ready piece.
This doesn't feel good.
Right
I would agree with that.
That is center cut off the mask.
Nice job. The brotherhood of catcher and home plate umpire as Alex Ortiz, the home plate umpire, goes out and hands the ball to Zach Phillips to give Austin Romine a little time to catch his breath. Runner on first, nobody out here in the bottom of the 8th as that one's in the dirt. So you mentioned Troy Tulowitzki. You could probably put Tulowitzki and Cole Hamels on that list of players that are always in a rumor to get dealt. Trades that could probably help replenish farm systems. But does Adames have what it takes to maybe step up should Tulowitzki, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but just speculating, if he does get dealt, as Adames looks for the gap
light ball
in left center field, and somehow Holt was able to put that one away. Some confusion on the bases, but Pridey will retreat, and that was a catch for Holt.
And I'm pretty sure that was a light ball as well. We saw O'Brien get one in right. Watch the hesitation right here. I think it was in the lights. Ooh. He waited long enough until it came out.
Able to pick that one off the turf.
Kind of caught him in the heel of his glove a little bit. That one really handcuffed him. Nicely done by Tyler Holt.
But to finish that point, as Peter O'Brien steps in with 1 on and 1 out here in the 8th, does Adames have what it takes to maybe step up?
I think in the short term he does, but I mean, you know, he's not he's not Troy Tulowitzki. I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing for the Rockies is you're trying to build a championship team. How are you going to do that when you're trading a guy like Tulowitzki? The problem there is they haven't developed their own homegrown pitching yet. They've taken some high draft picks, but guys like Eddie Butler, John Gray haven't developed to that point yet. last year's first-round pick. Kyle Freeland's been hurt all year with bone chips. So, and I think after 15 years ago, the Denny Nagel and Mike Hampton contracts that did not work out, it's going to be very difficult for them to sign free agents to come to Colorado, free agent pitchers. So, the Rockies, need to get pitchers. Trading Tulowitzki might be one way to do it.
Peter O'Brien swings and misses. 1 ball and 1 strike. We've talked a lot about Peter O'Brien tonight, and for good reason. We have certainly zeroed in on the power, which comes up at 70 on that 20 to 80 scale.
Yeah, and Zach Phillips right there, 1-0 changeup. Very good pitch right there, preying on probably O'Brien's thought process of saying, let's end this thing in the 8th. I'll hit a 2-run Johnson right here and be good with it. Throw him a nice changeup and a fastball count.
He's been up there all night in that wind in right field, having to deal with that wind. He knows the wind's blowing out to left field too. He doesn't have to even square it up. Just going up in the air. Peter O'Brien also, we showed that 20-80 scale, 30 defensively behind the plate. It's more below average as opposed to well below average at the other corner spots. He just has some experience. I think he needs to take a lot of fly balls off the bat in left and right field just to get more used to it. I talked to him pregame though, Paul. He talked about he liked in right field mentally not having to be in every single pitch as you are behind the plate. So I think mentally he may be done catching. So it might be if he changes organizations, or if the Diamondbacks want to try to give another shot, maybe you give it another shot. But you have to really want to catch to be a catcher. You see where he's moved around the diamond.
He's played a good chunk of games in a handful or more of positions. Lines that one back. Count remains 2 balls and 2 strikes. But the old adage is, Bill, if you hit, they'll find a spot for you.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And when you are comfortable, and I think what John's talking about is a valid point, you got to want to be back there behind home plate. And if you can find a spot for him, right field, left field, where his power is going to play and he's going to hit some home runs for you, I think so be it. Take a lot of balls off the bat, get out there early, take your work. You can get a little bit better out there as a defender if you put. Oh my goodness!
And he's got that kind of pop, high and deep to left field, and it's a 2-run home run to give the PCL a 3-1 lead here in the 8th.
That was a very good at bat right there. Fouled off some tough pitches, down in the count, got himself back in it, got a ball up in the zone, and smashed it.
Feels nice to be right about something. We've been talking about this guy's pop all night long, and now the tie-breaking home run in the 8th. Another look.
That's a classic power swing right there. And there was another thing that jumped out on me. If you couldn't hear it through the TV set, it was the sound.
The sound of the ball off the bat was different. It was different. It was a true power hitter. There was a no-doubt home run. Wind or no wind.
Oh. I liked it.
Yeah.
He liked it too.
Jet Bandy steps in and takes a called strike. 0-1.
You can see why the Yankees liked him. You can see why the Diamondbacks went out and got him. If that guy could catch, I mean, that could be a special player if he was a catcher. You can see why Tony La Russa and Dave Stewart went out and got him.
Just let yourself dream for a moment, right? Him hitting either in front or behind Paul Goldschmidt.
Or Yasmani Tomas.
Throw him in the mix too.
Power hitters they have around Goldschmidt.
And that's a hitter's yard too.
Yep.
That one probably gets out of any yard other than, I guess, maybe a Fenway with the walls too high. That ball was just scalded.
Could have gone through it.
Yeah.
That's right.
He hit it hard enough.
That ball was squashed. Period.
Bandy strikes out for out number 2.
Phillips is still kicking himself over leaving that one up to Peter O'Brien. I don't blame him.
So he serves up the 2-run shot to Peter O'Brien, comes back to strike out Jet Bandy, but that figures to be the end of the night for Zach Phillips, as the Pacific Coast League has taken a late 3-1 lead with 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th inning. A pitching change here at Werner Park. We are back in a moment. Welcome back. A.J. Uchter takes over. 36 games for AAA Rochester. 4-2 record, 2.88 ERA. 14 saves, though. Obviously not a save situation here, as Peter O'Brien has broken a 1-1 tie with a long 2-run home run to give the Pacific Coast League a 3-1 lead here in the bottom of the 8th.
Not a bad way to treat yourself on your 25th birthday.
Yeah, that'll play. Chesler Cuthbert takes that one low. 2 balls and no strikes. Octor becomes the first Red Wing to be named to the All-Star team in back-to-back and 3rd selected to multiple All-Star games. Fouled out of play, 2-1.
Chesler Cuthbert chant not as catchy as Falou. I mean, he's got supporters here. He wasn't here, 4 or 5 years.
Agreed.
Like Falou, but also just not quite as catchy.
So 14 saves for Actor, obviously coming out of the bullpen in Rochester. Is there a chance, or is there probably a need? There's a need in every bullpen, really, for extra arms. But where does he fit as the Twins continue to hopefully surprise people? It's been a fun story to this point.
He's one of those strike-throwing relievers, kind of like we talked about Whitgren. And there he gets the hitter out in front with that breaking pitch.
See if Romine has room. He does for the 3rd out of the 8th. But we go to the 9th inning. The PCL has a 3-1 lead thanks to this swing off the bat of Peter O'Brien. We move to the 9th. Pacific Coast League up by 2. John Edwards takes over in a save situation. He'll face 9-1-2 for the International League. His first pitch to Jason Martinson is upstairs. See the numbers for John Edwards. A perfect 11 for 11 in save opportunities to start the year, but right now leads the PCL with 17. The 1-0 misses, and it's 2 balls and no strikes. And the PCL has the lead because of a long home run off the bat of Peter O'Brien in the bottom of the 8th inning. It's been a quiet night offensively for the International League. They scored a run in the 1st inning and nothing since. Just 5 hits to their credit. They have had their chances, most recently in the 8th when they left the bases loaded, but unable to push across a run since the 1st inning.
Big John came in, looks like he's a little bit amped up. I know these guys have played a lot of baseball, but this is your AAA All-Star game. You're coming in to try to close the door, and walks the leadoff guy on 4 pitches. He's got to take a little breath, slow it down, get down in the strike zone with a pitch, and then go to work.
So the lineup turns over for Jackie Bradley, who has been in there for the entire night. 0 for 3 with a walk. And as Edwards works here in the 9th inning, Sam Ryan had a chance to talk with him earlier and give us that inspiring story, of course, of John Edwards dealing with cancer, of course, but also transitioning from position player to pitcher. And doing so with the same piece that he dealt with that tough card of testicular cancer. So obviously he's back and he's raring to go, and that's good. So
he just does it so easy on the mound too. 97 miles an hour. It's not a big grunt delivery.
But that may have heard a grunt there from Jackie Bradley as that got him. And now after the walk, the hit by pitch, 2 runners aboard, still nobody out here in the 9th.
It's an easy delivery, but this one goes, he just overthrew this one like you're talking about earlier, Billy. Just seems like he's just overthrowing, a little too amped up.
Yeah, yanked the slider. He got down in the strike zone with a fastball and said, okay, I feel good. And then he just yanked the slider. Hit Jackie Bradley right in the leg.
We told Sam he works off his slider a lot, needs to improve his fastball command. That one's a slider that he yanked, like you said, just a little bit too over anxious.
Alan Hansen steps in, corkscrews himself into the ground, and that is a strike. I don't think he wanted to swing at that one. That may have been more of a defensive swing than anything else.
If that was a swing, it was because he was swinging to get out of the way. This one came in on him in a hurry, shocked him.
Fights that one off, 0-2.
Might be the pitch and just that little break that gets Edwards back in. He finally puts one in the strike zone after getting kind of a gift strike. On that same save list with a couple of guys with big league time. David Ardsman, a lot of big league time. Tui Valala with the Cardinals a little bit less, but has been up in St. Louis.
just misses inside, and the count 1 ball and 2 strikes. But how is that transition going? I mean, obviously the 2015 season's been great for him, saves wise, but that transition from position player to pitcher.
Well, just, to me, the thing is that the velocity's so easy. The delivery doesn't look like a converted guy.
Soft little line drive that gets into right field for a base hit. So now, for the 2nd consecutive inning, the International League has the bases loaded as Irving Falou steps up to the plate.
Well, nice job by Alan Hansen, able to sit on that slider and get just enough when he was out front for that fastball to catch up to that 97. Kept his hands back and just kind of flicked the bat at that one. And now we've got a mound visit, and that might be it for Big John Edwards. This is Fred Dadney, the pitching coach, actually going out there to visit the mound out of the Brewers organization.
Here's the breaking ball right here. He was out in front, but stayed there long enough and just flicked the bat head at the baseball. Sometimes it's not how hard you hit it, but it's where you hit it. It's a nice at bat.
I think Alan Hansen's got a chance to be an everyday player. He came up in the lower minors. It was level by level with Gregory Polanco. Then Polanco took off. I think some people forgot a little bit about Hansen, but we saw him in the fall league, I think 2 years ago, Paul, playing shortstop. Neil Walker, an impending free agent. Hansen might get a shot there at second base in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it was 2013. He was in the Arizona Fall League Rising Stars game. An all-star at Double-A last year, but now it's Falou. With the bases loaded, nobody out, top 9. Swings and misses 0-1.
That breaking ball he gave up the hit on was more of the hook variety. That right there is the hard slider at 89 miles an hour. Maybe that's what the pitching coach was going to talk about. Okay, let's go back to what's your best.
Right.
Fastball, slider, let's leave that hook alone. Went back to the hook.
He did.
So much for my speculation, Paulie.
It's all right, it's one pitch.
He's working with his own catcher, though, here in Tomas Telis. It's not like he's working with somebody he's never thrown to before. You imagine Telis is having a big hand in calling these pitches as well.
Good point. Here comes the 1-1. Swing and a miss.
And that's the good slider.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm going to stay with.
Yeah, the other ones are almost like a cutter at 88. That one had some real depth to go with the power.
One-two pitch to Falou. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Kind of a big pitch here because you just don't want to go 3-2 with nobody out here. And you have a run to play with, but you don't want to play with it. You don't want to lose 2.
Better than a strikeout per inning, and he could use one here. But once again in the dirt, and the count runs full.
John, you were right. That was a big pitch right there. Because now if you miss, you're just giving them a run. You'd much rather see a sac fly or something like that where they score a run with getting an out. That was a big pitch. This one's even bigger.
And they've only put one in play. It wasn't hit hard. It kind of ground ball with eyes in some ways, but make them hit you.
Martinson walked. Bradley got hit by the pitch, and then the single to Hansen before the strikeout of Falou, and there's one away.
Goes with a cutter, 3-2.
Yeah, something hard. Had a little movement in. 90 miles an hour. That's a big pitch.
And obviously with the bases loaded, the double play still in order, so that strikeout was enormous.
And that look from the side, it had a little bit more depth than what we saw from center field. So that's a 90 mile an hour slider.
Kyle Roller takes inside, 1-0. Third plate appearance for Roller. A walk in the 6th, or check that, a single in the 6th, a walk in the 8th. Breaking ball misses upstairs. 2 balls and no strikes. He's certainly not making it easy on himself. He's been working from behind quite a bit.
This is a high maintenance save attempt by John Edwards, walking the tightrope. And now down 2-0. Roller's got to pick a spot, see if he can drive one the other way in this wind.
He likes the slider. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you got a 94 to 96 mile an hour fastball, but it seems like that's the bread and butter. That 88 to 90 mile an hour little short slider.
That's what he trusts, clearly. When he needs a pitch, that's what he's thrown the last 2 batters.
He needs one here. Bases loaded, 1 away. This one a line drive, base hit center field. It'll score 1 easily. Here comes Jackie Bradley, and he is in there safely as well. A 2-run, 1-out single here in the top of the 9th inning. And Kyle Roller has evened things up.
That was a great at bat right there, and I think when he looked at the slider on the 2-0 pitch for a called strike, he said, okay, it might come again. If you throw a 2-0, you'll throw a 2-1.
And that run producer, big part of the field again. Kyle Roller didn't try to jerk one to right field. He's seen enough balls die in that win tonight. Brian Polberg comes and gets the ball from Edwards. 17 saves to lead the PCL, but not one tonight.
Not at all. So they will cheer on their own. Lewis Coleman comes in to try to keep it tied in the 9th. Welcome back to Omaha as Lewis Coleman takes over for John Edwards, who coughed up a 3-1 lead. He's pitched in 25 games for the home-standing Omaha Storm Chasers, a 1.76 ERA. Runners on first and third, and still just 1 away as Tyler Henson fouls that one back.
Coleman's got a big crossfire as well.
Yeah, much bigger than Whitgren.
Yeah, you're sitting there as a right-hand hitter going, okay, is this thing coming right at me?
Hard to get comfortable as a right-hander against Luke Coleman, who was a starter and then a closer for LSU. He had some success here in Omaha in 2009.
Be off the end of the bat, floated towards center field, and it gets down for a base hit, an RBI single for Henson, and it's a 4-3 lead for the International League. So they scored a run in the first, bats pretty much quiet for the rest of the night, and then all of a sudden they push 3 across here in the 9th inning.
And some excited guys in that dugout.
I'd say so.
Excited that there's no extra innings, perhaps. They need to prove they can hold a lead.
Yeah, there's still work to be done. By the way, there's only been 1 extra inning AAA All-Star game. That was back in 2004. Andy Phillips had a walk-off home run, and we talked about it before. Bill made sure to show America how unprepared I was and asked me what happens
if it's a tie.
If it's a tie. And naturally, I had no idea.
That's
but now
right,
I know.
You have the answer now.
Because I wasn't it never happened. So why would I have that information? I know now. What they do is they revert back to last year's
winner
for
home field advantage.
So there you have it.
Not home field advantage, but who hits last, correct?
That's it.
Because the playoffs
yeah.
are at a neutral site.
Correct.
Gotcha.
El Paso this year, and last year, as has been the case, in fact, quite a bit in recent history, the International League has won 5 of the last 6, including last year, and they have themselves a 4-3 lead with 1 out and still 2 aboard here in the 9th inning.
Hasn't mattered. Obviously, the PCL won the last 2 titles here in Omaha, even though they haven't been the home team in the AAA championship.
That one misses outside to Davidson.
That's a good take for Davidson because he's very susceptible to a breaking ball with 2 strikes.
It's another good take.
Laying off him has been that's a good sign for Matt Davidson. Now he has to prove he can hit him. Hasn't done it yet tonight. 0 for his first 3, and then got hit by that. Got dosed a little bit last time up on the forearm.
Goes to the breaking ball again. Davidson comes up empty, and there's 2 outs.
No need to throw him a fastball. You show the fastball. You just don't need to give him a fastball in the strike zone. He just hasn't shown that he won't chase yet. After 2 good takes, he thought he was going to get a fastball there and went waving.
So it's Tyler Holt with 3 runs home in the top of the 9th inning. This one right back to Coleman. And flip to first, and the inning is over. Welcome back to Werner Park in Omaha, Nebraska. It's been a fun couple of half innings. A 2-run home run for Peter O'Brien in the bottom of the 8th broke a 1-1 tie, but then the International League comes back with 3 of their own in the top of the 9th to take a 4-3 lead. And that's where things stand right now as Blake Wood set to take over. First in the International League with 21 saves, pitching to a 3.03 ERA for the AAA affiliate of the Pittsburgh Pirates in Indianapolis. And, well, we'll try this again. Another safe situation. We'll see how this one goes. He's got Adam Duvall, who's got big-time pop. Tomas Tellez and Arizmendi Alcantara due up here in the bottom of the ninth. First pitch misses outside. 1 ball and no strikes.
And Duvall and Alcantara played the whole game. They've gotten a lot of looks at a lot of different pitchers. But Duvall has the power to reach that shortish left field, whether the wind's blowing in or not, but it's decidedly blowing out.
I remember asking earlier, why would you put Duvall in the 7th spot? Well, now his bat comes up, down a run in the bottom of the ninth.
So you're looking at his 20 homers and his 60 ribbies in the 7th spot.
That's reason number 411 why I'm not a manager. And he's got a hitter's count here, ahead 2-0. But takes strike 1.
Woods popping the mid-95 on the stadium gun on that one. Another guy who pitched in this ballpark, 3rd-round pick of the Royals in 2006. Pitched for Omaha for several seasons, including 2 in this ballpark, 1 in the old one in Rosenblatt.
Duvall fouls it back, count even up, 2 balls and 2 strikes. Look at the saves leaders and those 21 tops in the international.
I'm going to test your memory here a little bit. I got a comp for this guy right here.
Oh boy.
And it's not that far back, but J.J. Putz.
Oh yeah.
He's got the same kind of mechanics. There's a little bit of a high leg kicks,
there,
little deception.
He kind of coils up with that, loads that hip, kind of coils up and hides the ball behind his hip, and then comes at the hitter. Little J.J. Putz there, and almost lands and then strides.
Duvall calls time. This is a good matchup, by the way. Mentioned the 20 home runs for Duvall, and Blake Wood hasn't allowed a home run in 34 2/3 innings so far this season. So which trend will continue here? A 1-run game in the bottom of the ninth. The no home runs allowed, apparently, but a walk.
Not your formula for success when both closers have come in with the save opportunities and walked the leadoff hitter. Now, obviously, they've had success during the regular season, and once again, this is 1 game, so this is not the norm for these guys.
That's not how they racked up 38 combined saves in the first half, was walking leadoff guys.
And it was a leadoff hitter that came around to score in the bottom of the 8th when Paredes led off with a single and came around to score on the O'Brien home run. This one tapped towards second, a high chop. They will only get the 1 at first. But a nice heads-up play at second base there by Hansen.
Had to be tempting, knowing Tellez, the catcher, was running, to try to get that lead runner. Even if you just get him by a fraction, you should have time to get Tellez. I think Hansen made the right call, though.
That was the tempting play right there. And you knew when that ball was hit, it was not a double play ball. So if your judgment as the second baseman says, I can't get this lead guy and give, that's a lot of credit to the base runner right there for getting down to second base in a hurry and making that decision.
Yeah, Duvall did a nice job. Broke well on that one in the dirt.
In there for a strike to Alcantara, who was 1 for 3, doubled back in the 5th inning.
97 miles an hour with movement.
You can see Romine had a little trouble squeezing that one. In the past, he had a little trouble receiving velocity, especially when it was down. That one was a little bit elevated.
Straight back.
It's a good pass.
0-2. Alcantara started the game at second base, or in center field, I should say, and then moved to second base.
Can't be the easiest thing for these guys to. It's one thing to be a utility player in the infield and have multiple gloves.
Right.
But going from the outfield back into the infield, it's a lot of work that has to go in for you to be serviceable at both spots.
It's really 2 different throwing motions for a lot of guys. You can't have that short arm stroke. You got to have that short arm stroke in the infield as opposed to the outfield. You can load up a little bit more And it's such a premium now with bullpens. You know, sometimes you got teams carrying 8 relief pitchers. You've got to have those multi-position players on your big league bench.
Well, those that have stuck around, and there is a bunch of them, they have witnessed a good ball game tonight. It's been tight throughout. And now here we are, a 1-run game with the tying run in scoring position and 1 out in the 9th. Alcantara skies this one. Martinson underneath it for out number 2. Maybe a little adventure putting that one away, but 2 outs nonetheless.
And Wynn's playing tricks for sure. And Martinson's another guy who might become a multi-positional guy. He's the shortstop at Syracuse. The Nationals traded for and just promoted to Syracuse Trey Turner, who we saw Sunday dazzle in the Futures game, acquired from the Padres last offseason. Trey Turner, just talking to Billy Gardner Jr., Trey Turner's a real deal. He's very excited about having Trey Turner. So Martinson's an all-star at shortstop. Might have to start playing other positions to get his bat in the lineup every day.
Travis Tyrone, the last hope here for the Pacific Coast League. And takes ball 1. Tyrone came in the 7th inning, struck out in his only at bat. And he has the tying run at second base in the person of Adam Duvall. Blakewood gets the sign, delivers the 1-0 pitch, misses outside, 2 balls and no strikes.
It's blowing some gas out there for sure. 98 on a pitch to the first pitch of this at bat. Haven't really seen much off speed from Blakewood.
Misses. 3 balls and no strikes. So again, that has been the theme. The late inning relievers, whether it was Zach Phillips in the bottom of the 8th, or John Edwards in the top of the 9th, or Blakewood now, not making it easy on themselves in a tight ball game. But that's poured in for a strike, 3-1.
You have the veteran Pridey on deck, Billy, who you've liked tonight.
Yeah.
Couple of knocks, just a good approach at the plate, and a lefty-righty matchup if he comes up.
And that 96 3-0 pitch, that's not just a get me over 3-0 pitch. That's good pace, good location.
3-1 misses outside, and now the potential winning run is on base with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. I'm going to guess that's not a situation where you pitch around a guy, but
No, I don't think so. I think in this particular case, especially with Pridey coming up, this is a short, compact stroke from a left-hand hitter that typically these kind of guys do well against somebody throwing some gas like this because they don't do anything. They don't overdo it. They don't overswing. They see ball, hit ball. That's
Foul
a good
back.
pass.
He really had a good cut at that one.
I mean, that's a good pitch. I mean, this is 96 and says, okay, here it is. What can you do with it? Jason's sitting there thinking, man, I had an opportunity right there with that pitch.
Yeah, he did.
And missed it.
he's got 2 hits tonight. Came into this one 2nd most hits in the PCL with 99 and 8th most RBIs. He's got 2 ribbies out there right now as he taps that one foul. 0-2.
That's dirty right there.
That's unfair.
That's an 87 split, I think.
That's what it looked like.
Wow.
I don't know how Pridey got a piece of that one, but everything else has been 95 and above for every pitch. And he throws that on an 0-1 pitch.
So Blakewood 21 saves with Indianapolis, looking for a save here in the 9th. And Pridey stays alive.
It's a nice foul off. You could tell he was a little tardy on it because of that split that was just prior to it. So this really opens up the door for Blake to throw either one.
Strong arm, but I put lax aggressiveness when attacking batters. I beg to differ with what I've seen in this inning. He's been going after Jason Pridey right here. And a lot of fastballs this inning. Comes back with a split there.
They'll check. He did not go. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
I think he's got to come back with that splitter right here to try to finish him.
I agree. I mean, Pridey has to gear up for 97. Here's 83, 85 in the dirt.
Adames on deck. He homered to open the scoring for the PCL.
There it was.
But he will not get to the plate in the bottom of the ninth. Blake Wood works into and out of trouble in the ninth inning. A terrific ball game once again goes by the way of the International League. They have now won 6 of the last 7 AAA All-Star games, and this one was not an easy one.
Now, when we go back to that last pitch, the punch out, I mean, Blake Wood, he had it going on tonight. Was a good heater, 96, 97, and then he introduced that dirty split finger right here, and this might have been a called strike, but you can just see the depth, the tumble of that split finger.
And it was late.
I mean, that's a big league quality arm right there with the fastball split combination, no doubt.
Just what the Royals need, another hard-throwing relief pitcher with an out pitch to join Herrera and Davis and Holland and all the rest.
And not just one out pitch. I mean,
2.
both of them. That qualifies.
So the International League, again, they scored a run in the first inning. Their bats were kept quiet until they trailed 3-1 in the bottom of the 8th inning after a 2-run home run by Peter O'Brien. Looked as though things might be wrapped up with the successful first half that John Edwards has had. Wasn't able to get the job done, and it was a 4-3 victory for the International League. So Peter O'Brien, at least for a little while, thought was going to be the hero after we talked about it early and maybe often, his maybe lack of a position. He got some early action in right field, came through with the home run, but an eventful night nonetheless for Peter O'Brien.
Yeah, he had a couple difficult plays. This one in right, you could tell that was the sun field right there. This one got caught up in the lights. I don't think there was any question about that. It got caught up in the lights. So he had some difficult plays, but this was on display. This ball not only went far, but we talked about it when it happened. It was louder than other balls that were hit tonight that were hit fairly hard. This guy's got raw power. John, you talked about it. It was his 25th birthday right there. That's a good swing and shows a lot of promise in the future for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, that power is going to play down the defensive spectrum. You don't have to put that behind the plate. So if he can be capable defensively in right or left field, this guy's going to hit his way to the big leagues sooner than later.
O'Brien, a former farmhand with the New York Yankees, now of course with the Arizona Diamondbacks, but it was a current Yankee farmhand, Kyle Roller, who had that 2 RBI single in the 9th inning to tie things up before Tyler Henson had the go-ahead RBI. It was interesting. There was not a lot of offense in the middle part of this game, but then we get to the bottom of the 8th and the top of the 9th, and it was like, all right, now game on. Here we go.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about it is it was against guys that don't give up runs.
Right.
So you could see this thing playing out with some of the guys that were throwing the ball earlier, but when you got to the back end of the bullpens here at the All-Star game, these guys have a track record this year, certainly, of not giving up biscuits. And the next thing you know, there were biscuits being given up.
That's right. So it is a win for the International League. And let's send it down to the field where Sam Ryan is standing by with our top stars for the IL and PCL. Sam, take it away.
That's right. It's the time for the MILB.com top stars of the game. As you mentioned, we are joined by PCL President Branch Rickey III, IL President Randy Mobley, and our 2 top stars of the night. From the IL, Kyle Roller, everybody. And from the PCL, Peter O'Brien. Congratulations, guys. Kyle, I have to ask you, there was a momentum swing, obviously, after his home run in the 8th inning. So you have the bases loaded and out. What is your thought process?
Just find a way to get the job done. These guys battled all night, and to be able to be in that position to put the ball in play and make things happen is an honor.
How neat is it for you to do it on this stage at the AAA All-Star Game?
It's a huge honor. I mean, you work all year to get here, and glad I could help my team to victory.
Congratulations. Peter, you hit 13 home runs in the first round of Home Run Derby right here on Monday. So you knew this ballpark. You knew you could hit them out. Your approach there with a 2-2 pitch.
You know, I'm just trying to stay short and, just try to get a job done. Just pass it on to the next guy and keep it going and try to get a win.
You gave your team their first lead of the night. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The 2 MILB top stars of the night. Congratulations, guys.
Sam, thanks so much. As we take a look at the nights here for Kyle Roller and Peter O'Brien, I know that there's a guy named Mark Teixeira in New York, but in terms of Peter O'Brien, obviously a big night for him in a losing effort. You project now for the Diamondbacks. When do you think we see him at the big league level?
To me, a lot of it has to do with where can he play defensively. He's blocked at first base by Paul Goldschmidt, and he has to fit on an outfield corner. And to me, I think that one of the reasons they could trade a Mark Trumbo is this guy has a lot of similar skills and a similar profile and can play one of those corner outfield spots as soon as he polishes up his defense a little bit.
Yeah, what I got a good look at today, Paul, was the fact of even though some of the late inning relievers gave up runs that they haven't customarily done, these guys are coming in throwing gas, just like we've seen at the big league level. And I think there's going to be quite a few people in this game that are going to impact the races as we move forward this year.
No question about it. We have done a number of AAA All-Star games here on MLB Network, and that always seems to be the case, whether it's the big-name prospect or that depth guy in the organization. There is always someone that comes from this game that helps a team get to the postseason. Friday on the MLB Network Showcase, All-Star sluggers Adrian Gonzalez and Bryce Harper lead their teams into battle in our nation's capital. Dodgers Nationals live at 7 Eastern, presented by Chevrolet. So for Bill Ripken, John Manuel, and Sam Ryan, I'm Paul Severino saying goodnight from Omaha. Thanks for watching the 2015 AAA All-Star Game right here on MLB Network. A 4-3 win for the International League. Good night.